You're on in three, two, one.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hang Up. We are live. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me tonight, John Gleason. How the hell are you, man?
I'm doing all right. Just I had a pretty busy day at work, and then now I'm here hanging out with you.
Did your busy day at work have anything to do with the peace deal that's not a peace deal? That's a memorandum of understanding that's only been partially signed and might already have been destroyed?
no, but that was an interesting, part of today. No, mine's more like, oh, we need to have this thing done, but we've also not even started developing the thing you need to do it. So, it's a different kind of disorganized hell.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to make this really quick. I've been busy. I've been a busy little boy. I've taken care of everything here at home all by myself while Arden recovers. She's doing really good. Spiked a fever yesterday, but she's relaxing right now, probably sleeping. But that means I'm taking care of the dog, the cat, all the snakes, the rats, anything and everything. In addition to actual, like work I've got to do. And I did a 4 hour live stream with Jovan and Jeff today. And that was great. That was loads of fun. Somebody in chat said it's Texas Matt and Alabama Matt. You, don't do that to John. Don't make John Alabama Matt. That's not fair.
No, I feel like that's more of a diss against you right there. I
They're
mean, like,
taking away the rest of your hair, bro.
yeah.
You got to
Well,
earn
also,
that.
there's certain connotations with Alabama, like fucking sisters and sorry, crap, doing the sister thing. Anyways, already screwed
John
that
had to
up.
go and screw it up for everybody. All right. So normally, this is my show. This is the Hang Up right here on the line, and it's my Wednesday night show, and it tends to be about politics quite a bit, but also about religion. A theist will always go to the top of the queue. There is a theist being screened right now, and assuming they're actually being screened, I'll get to that call just the second it's done screening. So, um, Jack, once they're done screening you, we'll put you through. But normally, what I've been doing for the last few years of this show is I'll come in and have a sort of, you know, hey, here's what's going on. Here's some bits of the news. Here's some thoughts. Here's me complaining about stuff. And you can call in and you can defend, your God. You can defend your MAGA. You can defend whatever that we don't agree with. And all of that is still true. But I am so busy and so tired that I was completely lazy and I didn't prepare a thing. I do have the text um, from Time Magazine of the 14-point memorandum of understanding, which I heard Trump signed while he was at the G7 today, but I don't think Iran has signed it. And Israel is evidently upset, and there are people who are they're like, "Oh, Netanyahu's weak because the United States shouldn't be making a deal with Iran, and that in any way um, prevents us from attacking Lebanon and whatever else." And honestly, I've been so busy, I have not been able to keep up with everything. And so today is a really good day for MAGA defenders to call in and be like, "Dude, did you hear about this thing?" Because the answer is going to be no, but John might have.
No, I haven't heard anything about that. I'm usually kept in the dark where I'm at because it's kind of like there's this whole need to know thing, and typically I don't need to know anything at my job, and I try to keep it that way because of certain chat things. What's that app called? I can't remember. Signal. The signal chat thing. I'd rather
I've
not
got
have
signal.
some kind of yeah. I'd rather not have some kind of signal situation pop up.
We need to add some stuff because I literally only have two people on my entire Signal thing that I've ever spoken to on Signal, and that's
Mm.
Arden and somebody who won't be named because I don't want to out them. But if you're ready, man, we got callers. We can dig in and get
Yeah.
started on calls. As always, if you're a God believer, all you got to do, please, 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 please listen very carefully. I had a great day today. I'm in a good mood. I'd rather not put anybody on hold. There are tech issues, there are some delay issues, and it is necessary. I'm sorry. I know that for me, we do this all the time. And for most of you who are calling in, this is your first time or your one shot or whatever else. And you really want to present your entire case as if you booked a debate. This is not a debate. This is a call-in show. It can be as close to a debate as you're willing to make it, but please understand, we're going to need to interrupt. We're going to ask for clarifications on definitions. When we hear something that's, I don't know, confusing, irrational, dare I say, batshit, we're probably going to jump in to address that, which means if you planned out a this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, you may not ever get past the first one if the first one doesn't make sense. It's just the nature of the beast. We're not trying to be dicks about it, but remember, there are other people on hold and there's an audience here. And all we really want, genuinely, is for somebody to have a good conversation where they can say, here's why I think you should believe X. And X can be, I don't know, God is a poop stain on the world, or God is the greatest thing since sliced bread, or MAGA is the most wonderful human ethical group of awesome people. I will say that the UFC fight stuff that happened, I used to like the UFC a long time ago. I have some problems, not so much with fights and consensual adults fighting. I mean, I've had UFC fighters on the show as my guests, or not UFC fighters, but MMA fighters. I don't have as much beef with that. They're being consensual. I have a little bit of problem with the atmosphere that tends to surround that much machismo. And when I posted about, I think it's Josh Hokett, who's a racist, transphobic bigot who made the statement about Michelle Obama at the, here we are with a bunch of people on the lawn at the Capitol with an arena that's built. I mean, they gave Obama shit about wearing a tan suit. They gave Michelle shit about planting a vegetable garden. And these people have torn down the East Wing and set up a motorcycle jumping UFC thing where thousands of people showed up to pound energy drinks, Monster energy drinks, and to beat up each other. There was a fight that broke out ahead of time, and then do their fights, and then get a mic on the grounds of the White House where they make just the most bigoted statements. I complained about it, and of course, instantly on my Facebook page, the responses that I got were from a bunch of dudes that were like, why'd you say that to his face? You'd never say that to his face. You wouldn't say that to his face. You're just, blah, 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 blah. And I get this all the time because there are people who feel that not only does might make right, but they're ill-equipped to have an intellectual discussion or an evidence-based argument. And so they think, oh, yeah, well, I'll kick your ass is somehow a win for them. It happened with a guy here local who went by the name of Charlie Chokehold. He got mad when I talked shit about Chuck Norris. And he's like, oh, you wouldn't say that around me. Or what? And yeah, I would. And so I made this post on Facebook. John thought I was vague posting, but genuinely, this is a message to everyone. Anyone out there who wants to be like, you wouldn't say that to my face. Here we go. Let me be clear. Yes, I would say that to your face. I'm not afraid of you. Can you kick my ass? Almost certainly. I'm 57. I've been in one fight when I was a kid. I'm old, I'm slow, I'm weak, and I'm completely disinterested in physical violence. I'd probably just stand there and do nothing as you pummeled me. I couldn't have beaten almost any of you punch happy dipshits in my prime, and I probably didn't even have a prime. And then after you beat the shit out of me, you can strut your Neanderthal DNA around jail while you go broke from the lawsuit that I file, and you'll still be an ignorant, terrified little bitch, and I'll still be right. The pathetic manosphere is full of the, well, I can kick your ass buffoons who think they can just run around assaulting people for saying things they don't agree with. And that's telling. It's why the big orange baby surrounds himself with guys in Speedos, which, by the way, Lindsay loved, expressing their delusions and talking tough because they're too frightened and stupid to be effective with thoughts or words. And so they'll pretend that being able to kick someone's ass means they have a nice penis or something. You guys are weak. You're weak as fuck in the only way that matters, and you do not ever frighten me. What are you going to do? Kill me? Kick my ass? I can't do anything about that. I'll still be right, and you'll still be a weak ass little bitch. Okay.
You know, I just have to say that the Sunday birthday party for the orange turd was the most white trash thing that I have ever seen. Like, as somebody from Alabama who drives through the boonies like yearly, like every time we travel, like either down to Florida or we travel anywhere, we travel back roads. Okay, we've seen some shit, and Casey in the chat will tell you we've seen. I saw this one restaurant, no joke, Matt. The main draw for it that they put on the front of their store was something along the lines of hot dogs and chainsaws, and like I don't know what the premise of that was. But that does not even hold a candle to how white trash the fucking White House was this past Sunday when they were fucking chugging Brondo and like screaming about electrolytes while they did flips on motocross bikes and shit. Like that's the white trashiest thing ever.
That sounds like hot dogs and chainsaws. Sounds like a juggling act.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. Ooh, you got a hot dog. Ooh, that's a kielbasa, and that's a chainsaw? Wow, that's amazing. All right. If we're ready, let's go ahead and get to the show right now. I think I might have screwed up. I clicked on air. Let me try answering on air. So Jack's calling from Wales. Jack's a theist. Pronouns are he, him, and says we're all made in God's image. Hey, Jack, welcome. You're on with me and John. How are you?
Yes, very good. Thanks. You too.
So how do we know we're all made in God's image? And what does that mean?
I believe in evolution, but guided by God. And naturally, we only humans are made in God's image. We are the only ones that can go to heaven.
So, Jack, why are we so similar to other great apes then? Like, if we're so super special, why do we share so much common DNA with them? Why do we, basically look like them without body hair? Like, why is that? God get lazy and just copy paste some shit?
As you notice, we're similar, but the brain is monkeys or apes, flying planes, working, the technology. All this is human. We are the advantage over all animals.
So Jack, I would agree that the brain of these apes, me and John and others, are better than our ape cousins. But what I asked was, what does it mean to say that we're made in God's image, and how can you know that that's true?
Well, it's true because we are the only ones that can get to heaven by being good.
Okay. So I asked what it meant and how you know it's true, but you said it's true because we're the only ones who can get to heaven. So you'll have to humor me for a minute here, Jack. I don't believe there's any place called heaven. I don't believe there's a soul. I don't believe there's any possibility of an afterlife. And even if there was, how would you demonstrate that we can get to heaven and that we are the only ones who can get to heaven?
That's easy. NDEs.
Okay. NDEs are near-death experiences, but they're not death experiences, and they aren't confirmation of an afterlife. People see different things depending on, in some cases, their religious upbringing, and in some cases, the religion that they're, seemingly seeking. But the fact that somebody who is near death has an experience that they describe as a trip to heaven, that doesn't prove that they went to heaven, does it?
Well, in fact, I think, please, he's American, Dr. Pania. if you study him, he has now classed them as after-death experiences, not near-death. Because these people's brains, hearts were completely shut down.
Well, if
and
I
they knew
can,
what was going on around them.
Jack, I feel like the direction Matt might go is to ask you, how do you know that it's actually after death? How would you be able to actually discern when that actually occurred and whether or not they actually, like, it actually happened, or if it was just an experience like that they hallucinated or something? How do you discern that it was real?
Well, how could it be an hallucination when these people are clinically dead, state eyes, for example, tape shut, and they are describing something that's
So
happening in another room.
task. Well, hold on. The first task is for you to actually be able to discern that it happened while they were brain dead in that situation, as opposed to happening on either side of brain death.
That's been confirmed many times by.
No, John. Here's the problem. Or Jack, sorry.
Tanya.
Jack, listen. So at one point, a person is conscious, and then at the next point, they're dead, and then at the next point, they're no longer dead, right?
Correct.
Okay. So let's call that time A, time B, and time C. Time B is the time that they're dead. Time C, they're alive, and that's when we get the information from them. How do you show that the experience they're describing occurred at time B and wasn't invented at time C when they were revived?
By medical science.
No, medical science has no ability to investigate time B.
Study Sam Pania, Bruce Gleason, Vin Lam.
I'm sorry, Jack, you can state as many names as you want. The names will never be convincing. I'm not even going to Google them. It is not possible for us to verify if a person's reported experience occurred while they were dead or after they regained consciousness. That's not possible. There's no process by which we can investigate when that memory was formed, especially since the brain, which stores the memory. I'm sorry, go ahead. Just interrupt me. It's good.
Sorry, there's a slight delay on my earphones.
I know there's a delay, but normal people can tell when I'm still talking, which is 93% of the time on this show. So if someone dies and then they are revived and they tell you that while they were dead, they were in heaven, how do you verify that what they're telling you occurred while they were dead and wasn't just invented by their brain as a way of explaining a gap in time after they were revived?
Well, as I said, not only science, you've got to think by the Bible, everything the Bible says have happened when people are in heaven. They've confirmed what God and Jesus have said.
Jack, you don't just get to say science. You don't just get to say science. What I'm telling you is I'm not aware of any possible way that any scientific investigation could be done to show that a memory was formed by a soul outside of a body while it's dead. By the way, if science has confirmed anything, it is that every single thing that we've ever identified as the soul is a malleable, changeable part of a brain which ends when you die. So the notion that there's an afterlife is patently absurd. But you don't just get to say science, and you definitely don't get to point to the Bible, because there's no evidence that what the Bible says is true either.
Did we hang up on him or did he hang up?
I guess Jack went away.
Okay. I was gonna try to explain the biological process of forming memories and everything, and that it has to first it's stored in short-term memory, and then it can convert into long-term memory later. But those are chemical reactions and physical processes that happen in the brain. So, like, how exactly does that like make
Oh, Jack's
sense?
back.
Oh,
Okay, Jack, you're back.
Oh, sorry about that. My phone went off.
Yeah, your phone
What was you
died
saying?
and now
Sorry,
it's
Matt.
back. And so how do I tell what happened while your phone was dead?
No, it didn't die. It just,
From my point of view, it died. You tell me it didn't die. How could you prove it didn't die?
well, because I'm talking to you on it.
No. I said it came back.
No, it hasn't come back because I haven't put it in the charger.
That's what
It
you
just
tell
went
me,
off.
but how can I know that?
Can you tell me then? Can you explain terminal lucidity?
terminal lucidity?
Yes.
So Jack, whether we can explain something is completely irrelevant as to whether or not there's reasonable evidence to conclude anything at all about an afterlife. So let's just pretend that no, we can't explain it. What does that prove?
It proves the soul.
No. Okay, Jack, I'm going to apologize because you and I are just not capable of having a conversation. And I will be saying very mean things if this continues. So I'm going to see if John wants to see if he can steer this in a way where I don't turn into a raging asshole that
Well,
says
this is
terrible
why,
things.
because you got no answers to people. That's when you
I'm
start
sorry.
running away.
I'm sorry, Jack. I'm going to mute you now. And you couldn't fucking bow out gracefully. So now I'm going to school you like a little bitch. Whether or not I have answers doesn't tell us anything at all about whether or not your answers are right. That's the thing I was politely trying to point you to, is that even if we don't have an answer to why something happens, that doesn't mean that your bullshit made up fantasy fiction based on a goddamn book that is anti-science and not demonstrated in any way. That doesn't make it true. You are not a particularly bright individual. You are a weak-minded fool who buys into things because the Bible says so and because you heard something about science. But you don't know anything about science. You don't understand science. You don't understand the scientific method. You don't understand the limitations of science. You don't understand that science is rooted in methodological naturalism, which is not the same as saying that the natural world is all that exists. It says that the natural world is all that science is able to investigate. So science cannot, by definition, currently tell you anything about the supernatural, positive or negative. You would need to demonstrate a mechanism by which we could actually explore this. When it comes to something like the notion of a soul, every single characteristic of a soul, apart from its ability to leave a body, is an identifiable characteristic of a brain's psychology, the brain that produces the mind. And all of these things are subject to change, either through physical damage, through chemical structures, and that's why people have hallucinations. Also, we don't like not knowing. So many times when their brain shuts down due to an anesthesia or dying, when they come to, they don't make much sense because their brain is trying to reset and make sense of and construct a story in order to explain to the rest of them what happened while they were out. Because they don't know, because science doesn't know, because there's no way to investigate it. Now I'm gonna do you the second solid favor of the day. I'm going to leave you on mute. And then I'm going to do you the third solid favor of the day, which is this. In a minute, I'm going to bring you back on here. And I'm going to say, for the sake of argument only, Jack, for the sake of argument, let's assume that someone confirmed that a person died and their consciousness left their body, had an experience, came back to their body, and their body was revived. Let's assume that completely fictional fantasy scenario actually happened. I'm going to bend over backwards, metaphorically, because I'm too old to do that realistically. I'm going to bend over backwards and say, I'm going to, for the sake of argument, absolutely concede that somebody died, their soul left their body and came back and they were revived. I need you to take that thing that I just gifted you and show me with an argument, how does that prove that a God exists? Because that's your case. So let's assume that happened. How does that prove a God exists? I'm unmuting you now.
How many apples make a banana?
Oh my fucking God, what? Jack, can you actually answer the question like without?
No, can't.
Yeah, exactly. So for
Matt
all of those
always
out there,
runs scared. He's always got to milk me like a little girl.
what?
I've got a what, like a little girl?
Matt, you've always got to milk me or pass me on to the host instead of having a serious discussion. If somebody says something to you,
Why'd
don't
you say
agree
like
with,
a little
you start shouting
girl?
and bawling. Yes.
Are you the one that's being treated like a little girl?
No, you think you're treating me like a little bitch.
Yes,
You'd
I'm
like
treating
me
you
to
like
be a
my
little
little
bitch.
bitch. That's not a girl thing.
Yeah.
That's not even a human thing. It's just an insult for someone who doesn't understand when they're being handed the best
Can I ask-
opportunity they'll
Matt,
ever have, and
Matt,
they're so fucking stupid
can
that
I
their
ask you a
response to
serious
this,
question?
I'm sorry, I'm going to mute you and nobody's going to hear a fucking word you say until I'm done talking on my show, jackass. How many apples are in a banana? There are no apples in a banana. But you don't get to come in and ask me a question about anything. I bent over backwards and conceded your entire thing in order to point out, you dolt, that even if you were right that near-death experiences occurred and demonstrated a soul leaving a body, that would not in any way demonstrate that any God exists, let alone the God that you want. I'm going to unmute you again. Yes, I'm going to pass you off to the co-host because my patience for your time-wasting stupidity, epic stupidity, like you should be institutionalized stupidity, has worn out. But John's might not have. And I'd like to respect my co-host. So here we go again.
John,
Hey there, Jack. So do you want to answer the question of like, even if we give you that a soul left a body, somebody died, left a body and came back, how does that prove God, let alone your particular version of God?
I'd like to answer that, but Matt has done what he always does. He's backed away
Oh.
from the conversation.
Don't be a little
he
bitch right
can't
now
answer
and go to the meta. Don't be a little bitch right now and go to the meta. Just focus, Jack. Lock in.
Tell
You get
him
a
to
lock
You
put
in,
his
carers
Jack.
know you have access to a phone.
Tell him to put his big pants on, his big boy pants on, and
Jack,
talk.
I've got my
why
big
do you
boy
have to
pants
be
on. You don't
misogynistic
deserve
right
me.
now?
There's too many people
You can't
shouting.
handle
I
what's
can't.
in my pants.
Quit fantasizing about
Oh,
what's in Matt's
I hope
pants and
not.
just answer the question.
I had a serious question to ask Matt.
Matt's
Well, you're
done
going
with
to
you.
ask John, or you don't get to ask it.
Okay, John, may you ask Matt, why
No.
did he turn against God?
No, I'm going to mute you, Jack, and you're going to shut up and nobody's going to hear you. And when I'm done berating you, I'm going to hang up on you and nobody will hear anything from you again. You better run. Go let your carers know that you're ready to go back to bed now. It's time for your evening meds. You don't get to treat my co-host as if they're a messenger boy for me. John's more than capable of handling John's capable of handling anybody, but let me tell you something. John in preschool could have handled your bullshit before we even understood language. Ask Matt why he turned on God. I didn't turn on a God. You don't even know what you're talking about. I was a believer who could no longer believe because belief isn't a choice. That's a wonderful segue into our next caller, Glenn, who's a deist. Oh boy, we already got a problem there. Deist from Northern Ireland, pronouns are he, him, wants to know, how is belief not a choice? Hey, Glenn.
Hi, Matt. Hi, John.
Hey there, Glenn.
Sorry, just have to get used to that delay. Matt, I was actually in email communication with you, and obviously mentioned the fact that I've kind of, gone down the deist route, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. I have been watching quite a lot of the videos, of the show, and everyone says that belief isn't a choice, and you literally just said it. I just want to understand what you mean by that, because I do honestly believe that I consciously made the choice not to believe in an act of God.
Okay.
Let me ask you something, Glenn. Can you reverse that? Like, can you make the active choice right now to believe in an act of God?
Well, yeah, I think that's what I did whenever I did, because I wasn't really brought up in Christianity. Now, Christianity is obviously what I went into. I wasn't brought up in it, but as far as I'm concerned, I made the choice to believe in God based on certain options.
So when you say I believe something, what does that mean? Like, I believe anything. I believe I'm talking on a telephone right now. Do you believe that?
Yes, of course.
Did you choose to believe that, or is that something you were compelled to believe by the evidence?
Yeah, compelled to believe by the evidence, because I've got a phone to my ear right now.
Sure. So can you choose to believe that you're not talking on a phone right now?
No, I suppose I couldn't.
No. Are there any beliefs that you can simply choose? Because to me, a belief is the state of being convinced of something, and you can be convinced for good reasons or bad reasons. But in all cases, as far as I can tell, it is the state of being convinced. You don't just decide that you are convinced. You are either convinced because the evidence or reason, whether it's faulty or sound, compels you to. It's not in any way a choice. You can, to whatever limit you can choose anything. You can choose to pretend like you believe, and you can choose to act as if you believe, and you can probably choose to ignore certain things that should be compelling to you, but you don't merely choose the belief. It's something called doxastic volunteerism. I highly recommend that you go out and look it up, because this isn't me saying this. This is a truckload of research and philosophic thought on the subject. And I'm not aware of any case for the possibility of doxastic volunteerism being true.
Okay. Well, I don't really know how to respond to that. I'm not. But you see, that's the thing. I would say I convinced myself that I believed something without necessarily having the evidence to believe it whenever it came to Christianity, to be quite honest with you. And
did you convince yourself that it was true? Or did you become convinced that it's in your best interest to act as if it's true?
That's a tough question to answer, because I explained in the email that I sent, well, in reply to your reply, that I was at a point in my life where, I was thinking, this can't be all life is, where we can't be just here for the sake of being here. There must have been a reason, a purpose, a creation, and everything like that. So really, in my mindset at the time, I can't really tell you if it was an informed decision or just a decision of, this is something I should, because of the possibility of an afterlife.
Do you know what you just described?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what you just described? You described being presented with arguments and justifications that compelled you to be convinced that this can't be all there is. There must be something more. You just described becoming convinced for what I would consider to be poor reasons, but becoming convinced that there had to be more. You did not choose to believe that there was more. You became convinced for reasons.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That's just something that I'd, didn't realize. Yeah, you're probably right. I just didn't realize it.
I'm always right. You haven't figured that out yet? I'm kidding. Kind of.
Well, you're right about the big orange baby. I know that one.
Now, do you want to stop there, or would you care to tell me how you have detected the undetectable?
It's not that I've detected the undetectable. I think, even though I've decided that there's not an active deity, I just don't know enough science about how the planets and stars were created with, following the Big Bang expansion, to know that it makes more sense than a creator. And
wow.
It's my argument would be fine tuning. And I know you've debunked that so many times, but just as I look at it, why are we the only perfect planet in our solar system?
Okay, so first of all, go ahead, John. I talked enough.
Well, no, sorry, I mean to interrupt. But just looking at our single solar system, I don't see why you're so hyper specific about that, because we've been able to estimate the number of habitable planets that are out there are in the billions, the multiple billions in the universe alone, just by the sheer likelihood of all of the elements coming together that for life to be to develop on a planet. We've even been able to look out into the cosmos and find planets that most likely do have the ability to house life. So like that's just not even true on its face there. But also to the wider point of the fine tuning thing, I don't understand the whole fine tuning argument as far as like why that convinces people that God had to do it, because it seems to me like if we really wanted an indication that God definitely did create this universe, then fine tuning would be the last thing that we would expect. We would expect a universe that shouldn't exist unless God created it. And like God having to play along with the rules of physics and reality in general, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
No, fair enough. And like I say, it doesn't make a lot of sense to you, but to me it does, as in why, we're the only planet in our solar system. I know, obviously, you just said there about there's the possibility of planets further out that do have life the same as us. I get that.
I said that I've said that we've literally, we can actually detect other planets that have the right conditions for life. We haven't detected life like directly on them, but what we have done is we've been able to discern that they have the ability to house life. like they contain all of the basic properties of a planet that would house life. So like the life can definitely exist elsewhere. If it happened here, it can happen elsewhere. So like you hyper fixating on it just being this universe, like why isn't there life on Mars or on the moon or anything like that? Like that just that's like a non sequitur almost. It just doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't connect to the wider conversation of proving that a god exists. Just because we're the only planet in our solar system that houses life has no bearing on whether or not a god exists.
No, oh, okay.
I have some questions
Like it.
that
Yeah.
can fix this. Okay. So you said you don't know enough to conclude that a natural explanation is more likely than a supernatural one, right?
Yes, yeah.
How do you know that a supernatural explanation is even possible, let alone more likely, let alone what your default should be until you understand a natural explanation?
I don't. You're right, Matt. I don't.
Okay. So do you know that natural explanations are at least possible?
Yes, of course, yeah.
And you don't know that supernatural explanations are even possible.
Correct.
So without doing any calculation, given the choice, well, first of all, the right answer is just to say, I don't know. But given if somebody forced you to decide between an explanation that you know is possible and an explanation that you do not know is possible, why would you go for the one that you don't know is possible?
The old stupid one, I suppose, faith.
Okay. So by faith, I'm assuming, well, what do you mean by faith? Because you're basically saying that when you're given a choice between something you know is possible and something you do not know is possible, you're going to pick the something that you do not know is possible, and then you're going to say it's faith. But isn't it possible for you to accept every wrong answer on faith?
Oh, of course it is, but
then what fucking good is faith?
No, you're right. You're right, Matt. You are. I know you are.
I'm well aware. I'm just baffled at how you know this, and I think we're hopefully getting close to getting somewhere, because this isn't the first time you've heard this. You already know this, and yet you proudly emailed to tell me how you're a deist and now you're laughing and it's about faith. What's really going on here?
Good question. I don't know. Well,
I would recommend reaching out to recoveringfromreligion.org and possibly the Secular Therapy Project, because at this point, you have entered a realm of cognitive dissonance that is staggering because you are aware of it. You know that you don't know enough to reach a conclusion. You know that you have more justification for the conclusion you're rejecting than the one you're accepting. You know that the method, faith, that you're exercising is a vapid, useless, non-path to truth, and yet you're not totally comfortable with it because you emailed me. If you were totally comfortable with this, I don't think you would have emailed and then called me, which means not to sit here and go deep on a psychoanalysis, but it seems to me that somewhere you are super struggling, and it would be very useful, I would think, to figure out why that is and how do you get around it. because you might think that you've done away with the harmful God beliefs because you no longer believe in, the Christian God or whatever else. So you're going to, oh, at least the deistic God isn't a bad one. And yet, while the God itself isn't a bad one to believe in, and there aren't any doctrine or tenets, the fact that you have done harm, actual harm to your brain's ability to tell fact from fiction, that's the danger of buying into a deistic God.
Yeah, you make a brilliant point. You really do. And you're right, that is why I reached out to you, because you're very good at showing people, I suppose not logic, but realistic, reality that we have around us. So that is probably why I reached out to you. And
well,
what was the name of that? Recovering from Religion?
Recoveringfromreligion.org. It's an organization we work with and support, and we raise money for. They have a hotline. They have people you can talk to, and they're not trying to try to talk you out of your beliefs. They're going to try and help yourself get answers and deal with the things that are troubling you. And they also work side by side with something called the Secular Therapy Project, which is a way of connecting people to actual therapists that rely on science instead of woo or religion, to help treat the damage done both, by religion, by parents, by, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just real therapy. Did we lose you? All right.
Sorry, my phone screen locked, so I went off.
No, it's fine. We've had it. We've had a good discussion. I take that information, go look up Recovering from Religion. We're going to move on to some other calls, but I thank you for your time and your honesty in answering.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. Thanks, John.
Yep, cheers.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I have to say the Secular Therapy Project's pretty awesome. I actually use them to get my current therapist, and being in North Alabama, it's slim pickings as far as having good therapy up here that doesn't have Jesus being shoved down your throat.
Yeah, I used Secular Therapy Project to find my therapist, who contacted me today to ask when we were going to have our next meeting because he can't book it, because even though my insurance had been covering it, my insurance evidently just decided to stop covering it, or what may have happened is that the insurance card that they had on file has expired, even though it's been renewed. So in the next week or so, I've got to look into that because, it's been helpful. I mean, you can pull other people, and there are people who are like, oh my God, it's so obvious it's been helpful. And somebody else would be like, no. Matt still needs 10 million times the therapy that he's had or whatever. That doesn't matter. I know what I've learned out of it and how it's been helpful for me. And, having grown up around people who they had gross oversimplified understandings and misrepresentations about all kinds of things. Oh, homeless people were just lazy. Mm-hmm. People with mental illnesses were either demon possessed or just didn't want to function right in society. I mean, this is the type of thing that they held as views. And while I long ago realized, yeah, you know what? Therapy is a good thing. Crying is a good thing. I'm not going to go through my whole thing about crying again, but it's a good thing. Grieving and grief done properly is a good thing. And all of these things people are deprived of for various in certain religious traditions and things like that. But yes, check all that out. We have other calls, including Theus, if you're ready.
Yeah, totally good. I get some interesting ones. But while you were talking, I saw one of them, and my eyebrows were like, "What?"
Maybe it's this one, but this one's been on hold the longest. Steve-O is calling from Canada. Steve-O's a theist, pronouns are he, him, who says, he's going to prove God's real by John's prophetic revelation of the mark of the beast. How you doing, Steve-O?
What's up, Steve-O?
Well, I'm doing great, guys. Good evening, early evening to you guys over there. I just want to quickly say to the last caller, though, I would encourage him to also reach out to a full gospel church in his area and talk to his pastor, because I can assure him.
I wouldn't, and you can stop. You can stop giving your advice. Okay, no. I'm going to mute you, Steve-O. Steve-O, this is a courtesy. We've invited you in here to defend your beliefs. I already know that you're batshit crazy because you're about to talk about the mark of the beast. But we've decided to go ahead and grant you some stuff as well and go. There's nobody here who's remotely surprised that you're recommending a full gospel church. And if you think Glenn didn't know about or consider a full gospel church, it's because you, who are unqualified to make any recommendations to anyone about anything, didn't know Glenn's background and what he had already been through. And you're not qualified to give any sort of recommendations. So let's stop that. Let's get back on track. And I'm going to take you off mute. And you can talk to me and John and demonstrate your justification for thinking that God is real for whatever reason you want, including Mark of the Beast bullshit. And yes, I'm saying it's bullshit from the outset. And that I'm doing that specifically to wound you and make you feel that, oh, look, they're not going to pick what I say seriously, because you started off in a way that demonstrates that you're not serious. But let's ignore all of that. Let's just say Matt's in a mood. Maybe you should pray for God to release you from the anger that's boiling inside of you and from any desire on your part to comment on anything I've said, and just say, praise God, let me defend my beliefs as best I can. Let's try that now. So Steve-O is calling from Canada. Pronouns are he, him. Is going to talk about proving God's real by the mark of the beast. Hey, Steve-O, you're on with Matt and John.
Okay. What are we doing, a reset here?
Did you not hear anything I said about doing the reset?
Okay. Matt, no one's angry here. I'm certainly not an angry person.
Okay.
You don't know his...
So I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you, Steve, since you don't fucking listen worth a damn. Steve, when I take you off mute, we're going to start over. And it's in your best interest to not comment on this interruption or the interruption previous. If you'd like to be given the opportunity to present your case for God, you'll just start in by saying, so here's why I think belief in God is justified, and then present your case. If you say or do anything at all to reference this time that we've wasted repeatedly correcting your poor behavior on a call-in show where you have committed to defending God and have done nothing to do so, that would be a dastardly mistake. So let's try this again. All right, we got Steve-O calling in from Canada. Steve-O's a theist. Pronouns are he, him, and he's going to talk about proving God's real by John's prophetic revelation of the mark of the beast. Hey, Steve-O, you're on with Matt and John.
Hi, I'm on with Matt and John. Yes, the prophetic revelation of John in the book of Revelation, which you can dismiss or not dismiss. It's up to a person. Most atheists will not give it a full read or a full look, is my opinion. It says clearly in there, and he said this over 2,000 years ago, so think of the time frame. He said that there will come a time when no matter where you're rich or poor, great in stature, whoever you are, every single person, free and bond, will receive something in their right hand or in their foreheads. Without that, you won't be able to have a job, buy, sell, conduct, live your life, or do anything whatsoever monetarily related. That was said over 2,000 years ago.
Way ahead of you.
Made no sense.
Way ahead of you. Way ahead of you, Steve-O.
Made no sense. All right, you might be, but let me come closer to you before you were ahead of me here. He said over 2,000 years
Please
ago,
come.
it didn't make
He
sense.
can't see you.
And it didn't make sense, and it didn't have any way to be interpreted. Most people just thought it was some sort of, well, I'm not sure what they thought. Until
I know. Here's the weird thing, Steve-O. You talked about things like, oh, most people thought, and then you realized that you were about to speak directly out of your butt by claiming what most people thought when you have no way of knowing what most people thought. But here's the thing. I don't have to have a mark on my wrist, my right hand, or my forehead at all, do I, right now? I'm sorry. Was that question too difficult? Steve-O? Did your phone go, if you're on your phone on the web thing, your phone probably went to sleep. You have to tap your phone and then tap to wake it up. I am not required to have a mark on my forehead or my hand in order to have a job now, am I?
Not yet, but what I'm telling you is there are companies
Not yet.
right now.
Steve-O, listen.
You can research this.
Listen.
You guys don't let people talk.
Listen.
Can I make a sentence, or are you just going to?
No, you can't make a sentence. What the fuck is wrong with you?
What are you guys over there, atheists? Are you this angry all the time? You got something like, what is the problem with you guys? You need
okay, I'm going to mute you, you inconsiderate prick. Welcome to the show. I'm asking specific questions in order to lead to a fucking point. I'm sorry that you don't understand how basic fucking conversations work, but your claim is that the author of the book of Revelation made a prophecy, and that this prophecy is that everyone would need a mark on their hand or their forehead. So we're going to do this in baby steps. Here we go. I'm going to take you off mute. Is that what you were claiming? That the author of Revelation made a prophecy that we would all need a mark on our wrist or our forehead in order to have a job, right? You got to unmute your phone, dumbass.
Oh, it probably went to sleep. Oh, there it goes.
That's what you're claiming, correct?
Yes, and we're coming upon it very soon.
No. That's not how prophecies work. That's not how prophecies work. You don't get to call in and say, someday this will come true. In order to claim that it's a prophecy, it has to have come true already, right? Correct? I tell you what, since you don't know how phones work, call me back when it comes true. All right. What a waste. Could have been a decent call.
You know, I was getting ready with the mark and everything. I know he couldn't see me, but you know, I felt like I was giving him something. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
It's wild because I don't currently have to have. See, Steve is incapable of doing this. It's like, you atheists won't even look at this. Motherfucker, I'm a former Christian who was going to be a pastor. I not only read this, I taught it. You guys won't look at this. The fuck we didn't. Here's the thing. I don't have to have a mark on my hand or my forehead to get a job. Ah, but someday you will. Let's assume, Steve-O, for the sake of argument, that next year, everybody has to have a mark on their hand or their forehead in order to buy and sell goods and have a job. Prove that the author of Revelation knew that was going to happen, and prove that the only way the author of Revelation could have known that was going to happen is if, in fact, he got this information from God, rather than any number of other circumstances that could have an ancient passage and a modern event seem to be connected. But at the end of the day, I'm fine with the mark of the beast. I'm fine with the mark on my hand or on my forehead that allows me to have a job and buy and sell things, because I'm not a terrified little child who thinks that there's a magical being out there trying to destroy the world. See, you think that you can prove God because you've got a prophecy that, while it hasn't come true yet, you think it is likely to come true at some point. That tells us everything we needed to know about your horribly confused brain. You don't understand prophecy. You don't understand that a prophecy needs to be answerable by a single set of circumstances, not prone to any interpretation, that it needs to be in place visibly and publicly ahead of time, and that there cannot be people actively working to make it occur. See, if I order a medium rare steak, the waiter is not fulfilling prophecy when he brings me a medium rare steak. He's bringing me a steak that would make Trump sick, and I would like that. That's not what prophecy is. Oh, 2,000 years ago, when nobody knew what this would mean. The ravings in Revelation were so bizarre that that book was almost not even included in the Bible. I'm sure you're aware of that because you're a conspiracy theorist. You are a Christian conspiracy theorist. You are someone who has bought into the end times, blah, 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 and you don't know how reason works. And we could have helped with that. We could have asked you the questions that expose the fallacies in your thinking. And then I guarantee you what would have happened is you would have either said, those aren't fallacies, in which case you'd be wrong. You just need to go look it up on Wikipedia. You would then say, you would argue for abductive reasoning, that the most reasonable explanation of this event eventually occurring and it being included in Revelation is that there is a God that gave this magical message so that you would know it now. The problem is, if that's the most reasonable explanation, then why is God not actually just fucking talking to us right now? If it's as plain as the noses on our face, if it is the most obvious, most rational conclusion that any thinking person can reach is that what it says in Revelation is actually truly divinely inspired prophecy, then what's the point in keeping it hidden? What's the point in God not just showing up and saying, yep, I had him write that in a book a long time ago. I'm surprised some of you fuckers didn't see it. It's getting ready to happen. You're too late. It's embarrassing because you guys think there are secret hidden messages out there, that God's got a special message for Steve-O, because that makes Steve-O special. Steve-O sees the big picture that all the rest, that they don't want you to know. And God's given us over to a reprobate mind. We are deceived by the Lord of this world. Here. Oh, I have headphones on. That's almost never true. God has given you over to a reprobate mind, you sinner atheists. You have been deceived by the true Lord of this world, and you will be thrown into the pit of fire alongside of Satan and all of his angels. How dare you? God will not be mocked. Every knee shall bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord.
Hallelujah. I'm right there with you.
Your God can't give me so much as a hangnail, and the fact that I've been doing this for 20 years and all he sends is embarrassing buffoons who don't know how to work their phones is almost confirmation. But here we go. Will's calling from the UK. Will's a theist. Pronouns are he, him, and says belief is a choice. Hello?
Will, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
What up, Will?
How are you doing?
Doing good.
I'm okay.
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what I wanted to explain was the idea that I do believe that belief is a choice and you can choose what you believe. So I do believe actually in a kind of qualified version of a doxastic
volunteerism.
Yes. So first of all, I want to ask you the question of what do you believe choosing is?
When we talk about doxastic volunteerism, we can talk about a distinct decision to accept a proposition.
Brilliant. Okay. So if I was to say I choose a
red ball over a blue ball, do you accept that as a choice?
If there's a red ball in front of you and a blue ball in front of you, and you reach down and pick up the red ball and say you chose the red ball, colloquially speaking, I'm fine with that.
Okay, brilliant.
Can I add?
So,
can I add one asterisk in here? One little caveat. We've actually got scientific studies that we've been able to do on this choice making process, and what we've actually been able to discern is that you're only made aware of the choice that is made. The choice is actually made subconsciously, so you're not actually in control of that necessarily. You become aware of the choice that is made.
That's kind of a distraction.
Yeah, so those studies that have been done are specifically only in short-term brain stimulation studies. So, for example, if you say, pick up this ball immediately, and then I pick up the ball immediately, I'll then recognize that I picked up the ball, or like subconscious, like tapping as well. Also, those sorts of studies, they do demonstrate that. But actually, when it comes to criterial causation, especially when it comes to belief and like abstract concepts and understanding of like future me's and future self-reflections, these come under a more broader category of causation, which is criterial causation. And this way of understanding of your brain causing certain things to be believed is the fact that your neurons self-rewrite themselves and rewrite the triggers for when they would then fire a second time. Peter Sir did a huge study on this called The Neurophilosophy of Free Will, but he's also kind of backed this up with a lot of evidence with regards to why the neurons actually fire like this. So you could read into that. But what's more apparent is to kind of refer to it like an analogy, which is if I have a thermostat and the thermostat is going to ding at 20 degrees and the outside temperature is at 20 degrees and it dings the thermostat, okay? Then you say that the heat outside caused the thermostat to ding. Now let's say that the thermostat, when it gets dinged, because of it getting dinged, sorry?
I don't say that, but this is all secondary to the point, because whether or not you decided to pick up a red ball is not the same as deciding to be convinced.
Yes, it's deciding to set the criteria at which you would then be convinced. So when you set future criteria as to I would be susceptible to a belief.
That's not my point. I even said during the conversation that to the extent it may be, I said this, to the extent it may be possible to choose anything, you can choose what criteria you engage with or value and to what extent.
Therefore,
doxastic volunteerism is the notion that you can, as a simple choice, opt to be convinced of a proposition. Picking a red ball is a different category of choice.
Okay. Well, then I'll concede that doxastic voluntarism. I had a different understanding of what it would mean temporally, but that's fine. I can say that it's not doxastic voluntarism and just say that it is the idea that I can choose to set the criteria through which I would then believe something in the future. And if that isn't doxastic voluntarism, I'm not beholden to that, but I'm beholden to still the idea that belief is a choice.
Yes. We're talking about two different things.
Sorry.
No problem. Thanks, Will.
So, hello?
Yeah, you're still here.
I'm still there.
So we've settled that we don't disagree necessarily on doxastic voluntarism. Was there something else you wanted to engage on?
Well, still the point is you still, under what I've said all entirely here, is you can still choose what you believe.
No,
on the basis of
not in the sense that I'm talking about. I don't care for the sense that you're talking about. It's not relevant to the show.
Why is it not relevant to the show?
Because you can engage, the idea that you can engage in things to set your epistemology in such a way that it is unwarranted, this act of self-deception, is as freely choosable as anything, assuming that there's anything remotely approaching choice related to will, which is still like I reject libertarian free will and virtually every other thing of free will. But my issue here is whether or not there's a God. I don't give a shit if you can find a way in which people can voluntarily influence their beliefs. My position is that doxastic volunteerism is not tenable, and you agreed, or you don't have an objection to it. So now I'm no longer interested in other sorts of volunteerism. I want to talk about whether or not a God exists.
So when I came on, I said the idea that the belief is a choice was the question that I was going to ask. And
okay,
then
I'm sorry, are you genuinely trying to fucking lawyer your way into getting to talk about the thing you want to talk about when I just told you we're not going to?
No. And then I was about to continue to say that.
Then do you care to defend your theistic position?
Well, this was the question I wanted to ask because I found it interesting. But
no, I'm sorry. The question was, do you care to defend your theistic position?
I can give a defense of a theistic position if you'd like, but I think this is the question I came on.
So let's pause. Let's pause for just a second. Sure. First of all, we just got rated by Justin, so yay! Thanks, Justin. Also, Justin, if you're actually watching this, I need to talk to you and pass along a concern, but just check Messenger. All right, Will's here as a theist. We've already moved beyond the misunderstanding related to doxastic voluntarism, and Will is going to try to offer a defense of his theistic position. So I guess, Will, tell us what God you believe in and why we should also agree.
Well, I think the best way to understand theism is to look at it just from the basics of a omni-God, and say that this omni-God exists, and this omni-God is a personal God, and then anything that kind of stems from that, I think, is harder to know with more certainty. So we can begin with those set premises and then work from there.
So you believe in an omni-God. What's the reason we should also believe in it?
So I think it comes down to sort of more of a probabilistic argumentation. I think everyone should be relatively agnostic on whether or not God or no God is possible, but we can have a probabilistic belief that a God exists.
Well, how can you have a probabilistic belief if you don't even know that the thing is possible?
Because you can have a probabilistic belief on the basis that you know it's possible because it's logically possible.
No. I don't care about logical possibility. Anything's logically possible. I care about empirical possibility. If you can't demonstrate that God is empirically possible, then God doesn't become a candidate explanation for anything. And it's pointless to talk about the probability of a God that is not empirically possible or not demonstrated.
Okay, so how can you prove that the beginning of the universe is empirically possible? Or like
I don't believe necessarily. I'm sorry, Will, you don't get to ask the question and then answer it. So first of all, whether or not any of us have an answer to that question is irrelevant to whether or not you have a defense of a theistic God. But I'm not convinced that the beginning of the universe, depending on how it's defined, is an actual thing.
Yes. So I guess the question then is, you were saying that whether or not I can have a probabilistic belief of God, and my question was, I don't think anyone can have anything more than a probabilistic belief of why we are here in the first place, because we cannot know with any epistemic certainty.
That's not a question, that's a statement, and it's irrelevant to whether or not you can demonstrate a theistic God. You seem to be presuming positions that I've not actually argued for, and none of my positions are relevant to whether or not you can defend a theistic God. If you're going to say, oh, I think we're going to start with a logical possibility and then trying to, I don't know, estimate, because we can't calculate the probability of a God as long as it's not a square circle, you have a non-starter with a skeptic like myself. I need an empirical demonstration of possibility before I will even consider it a candidate explanation.
But then you wouldn't consider any reason for why we exist as a candidate explanation, because we can't prove it with any empirical possibility.
This is literally whataboutism. You're trying to say that my position of not being willing to consider your bullshit God means that I also wouldn't consider some other bullshit thing. And you're right. I don't. I don't think there is a meaning or a purpose or reason why we are here. And I don't necessarily know, and I'm not making declarations about what is possible or probable.
Well, maybe we can,
Yeah.
hopefully this isn't too much of a pivot, but can you give us some empirical evidence for your God? Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, okay. I think a good line of evidence for a God would be the idea that that we exist in such a way that our conscious experience maps perfectly or maps well onto the world that is around us.
That's a broad generalization there. Not everybody's does. And so like just because you have that experience or you think that you have that experience doesn't necessarily mean that that is like indicative of everybody's experience. Or
and why
does
would
it
that point to a God?
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Is like that has no indication of a God.
So yes, the argument comes down to the idea of effectively psychophysical harmony.
No. That's a bullshit argument.
The fact that X and Y are compatible doesn't demonstrate that X and Y are linked.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that my consciousness appears to have a conscious experience that maps reliably well to the world that I seem to experience does not in any way demonstrate that the reason why I have this ability is because an omnipotent God intended that.
But it's then the likelihood of why do you experience that versus...
No, it's not the likelihood. Congratulations, though, on working your way right back around to the same thing you tried to do before. How do you demonstrate that my consciousness, my conscious mapping of the world being reasonably accurate, is more likely on this prospect of a God that you cannot demonstrate as empirically possible than on natural processes? Wouldn't it be the case? Do you think it's possible by natural processes?
So I think what is possible by natural processes?
Is it possible? Is it both logically and empirically possible, seemingly, by natural processes, for a consciousness to develop that maps in some reliable way to the world?
Yes.
Cool. Since you've agreed that it's logically possible and empirically possible, is it logically and empirically possible that a God did that?
Yes.
How do you demonstrate that it's...
I'd have to caveat the previous sentence of empirically possible. But yes, I think it's definitely logically possible in both situations.
Yeah, that's not what I asked.
No, I know. I misspoke in the previous sentence when I said yes. So I would have said no. If candidate explanation A is logically and empirically possible, and candidate explanation B is only known to be logically possible, why should we ever prefer B to A? Yes, but I wouldn't grant that A is logically and empirically possible.
You don't think it's empirically possible for natural processes to result in a consciousness that maps reliably somewhat to the world?
Yes, I don't think we have empirical evidence that it is anything more than a likelihood. So if you give me a second, I could explain.
A likelihood is a possibility.
Yes.
Wow, we're dancing all around. So at a minimum, either natural processes led to the consciousness, or something other than natural processes led to the consciousness that can map the world, correct?
Yes.
We know that natural processes exist, and there's no reason to presume that they are incapable of the effect on their own, is there?
natural processes exist, and there's no reason to believe that they wouldn't exist on their own?
No, natural processes exist, and I'm not aware of any reason to presume that they are incapable of creating a consciousness or resulting in a consciousness that understands the world. Are you?
Yes, I see what you mean. So I think it's possible, yes.
Okay. So supernatural processes, I'm not aware that they exist. I'm not aware of how to investigate them. I'm not aware that they are empirically possible. So why should I ever consider them a candidate explanation at all?
Because I think when it comes to empirical possibility, I guess the way I should frame this in an analogy is I cannot be certain.
I don't care. I don't think we can be certain about anything. Nobody mentions certainty.
Okay, cool. And so then it's the reason you believe that there isn't a God is on the basis that
No, Will. I may or may not believe there isn't a God. I am at a minimum not convinced there is a God. The burden of proof is on the people who are claiming there is a God. It's not up to me to either demonstrate that there isn't a God or even to assert that there isn't a God.
Then I think unfortunately we'll probably find ourselves in some level of an agreement in that I think it's impossible to say with certainty whether or not there is or isn't a God, but I just think it's more
I don't care about
is.
certainty. I care about whether or not it is reasonable and rational to conclude that there's a God. And I'm unaware of any path to a reasonable, rational conclusion of anything supernatural.
I see. Okay. And what would
when you come up with a way
for something to be reasonable and rational, your qualifications for that would be?
So when we're talking about aspects of reality, a logically valid and sound argument supported by empirical evidence.
And when you say supported by empirical evidence, what to you counts as empirical evidence?
I'm not going to list everything that counts as empirical evidence. You've already acknowledged that you don't have empirical evidence for a God or anything supernatural.
Well, I think that the empirical evidence for a God can come from the idea that we're having the conscious experience that is more likely in a possible world where there is a theistic God.
No. Okay, we're done. Thanks, Will.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Cheers. That's not what empirical. You're back to. It's not. There's no way to show that it's not possible. And see, here's the problem with saying X is more likely on the proposition that a God exists. When you have a God, an omnimax God, that is essentially a panacea, anything that you declare is consistent with that God's desire is automatically more probable, 100% probable, if that God exists and is there to enact it, than it is under any other model. Because you're saying Magic Man wants A, Magic Man can do A, therefore Magic Man will do A, and A will be necessarily the case. This is why logical possibility is a useless way to argue. And this is where we get with modern apologists, is that instead of pointing to any sort of empirical evidence that would confirm, because they know science is barred, not by law or anything, from making declarations about supernatural causation until somebody demonstrates a mechanism by which we can investigate and confirm that the supernatural exists, that it can in fact impact reality, and that this can be detected and identified to distinguish between when a supernatural agent or supernatural cause is impacting reality and when it's not. None of those things are true right now. And so this is the best that the apologists have, is I'll tell you, no matter, Will's a nice guy, respectful, knows the lingo, but Will's argument boils down to nothing more than you can't prove God's not real. Therefore, I'm rational. No, sir, you're not.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, would that be it kind of sounded like a begging the question sort of situation there, where it's just kind of automatically assuming the conclusion at the very beginning of the thing.
It could be circular. Part of the problem is that, and this is why I stopped trying to identify some fallacies. We're arguing informally. And so until he actually puts it in a syllogism, it could be one of a half a dozen different fallacies, or it could just be that there's a valid structure, but an unsound or rejected premise. And in my case, it's the premise that we have good reason to conclude that a supernatural omnimax God is a candidate explanation. I don't accept that premise, and I need somebody to actually defend it. And the closest they get is, well, you can't prove it's not.
Yeah, and they always it feels like they always assume that unless you can 100% prove the naturalistic case, then automatically the answer is God. That seems to be the case every time.
I mean, you could probably say that you don't have any way to prove that the 816 Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't an actual real thing occurring elsewhere, and the information from that realm is seeping into our realm, into the minds of the creators of this. Until you start looking at, hang on, if that were the case, and the 816 Loki, the god of stories, or the Watcher, or whoever that can engage in this multiverse stuff, they could be over here fucking with our world too, but they're not, as far as we can tell. I guess there's just too many and we got lucky. I don't know. I don't care about logical possibility, because logical possibility is nothing more than, you can't prove I'm wrong. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what else is logically possible? Anything that's not falsifiable. It's not fair to say that somebody's going to get mad at me in email. It's not fair to say that it is in fact logically possible. By virtue of it being unfalsifiable, you have no idea if it's logically possible or not, but you cannot rule it out as a logical impossibility. And you can't do the same thing with empirically unfalsifiable, because you can't falsify the unfalsifiable. Okay. Oops. I'm sorry. I'm going to put you back in the queue, Paul. I clicked the wrong one, and we always put theist here first. Mavis is a theist, she, her, and is going to explain why the earth is flat. Hey, Mavis, is it locally flat or is it globally flat?
Hey, Matt. Your bald head is flat. Just like you're a smart little bitch. You got to get to debate me?
The fuck is
My
this
bald
call?
head is flat. It is locally flat in some locations, like where I bang it against the desk after people like you call.
You're a smart little bitch. You gonna debate me?
Wait a second, is this Jack?
How you doing, Jack?
Hey, how you doing, Baldy?
I'm doing well. Is there something wrong with being bald, Jack?
Yeah, I'm a little bit sore where you allegedly bent me over.
Okay. Say goodbye. That's amazing. I can't ban him, Michaela. Michaela's just ban him. He's calling in on the web thing, and so you can just change your IP address. And that makes it a little more difficult to ban him. And I guess I could tell. So for all the call screeners, go listen to the calls with Jack. And if you hear anybody that sounds that stupid and that Welsh, just don't let them in through. All right. Let's try this again. We have Elijah is calling from Georgia. Pronouns are he, him, wants to talk about the Gospels. So how are you, Elijah? You're on with John and Matt.
Hey, what's going on, John and Matt? Elijah here. Glad to be on the show. I'm actually on YouTube right now, just kind of watching the viewers roll in. Really great stuff.
Cool. What's up?
So I guess the last guy that you talked to, he couldn't really come up with any evidence for, like, there being an omnipresent, omnipotent God. I think that Jesus Christ is evidence enough.
How so?
How so? Well, he fulfilled the prophecies in the covenant written
No, he
of in the
didn't.
Old Testament.
No, which
how so?
can you name a prophecy?
Name a prophecy?
Yeah.
The virgin birth.
No, that's
How do
not
you
a prophecy.
So
Sorry.
first of all, that's not what Isaiah says. But also, how do you prove that Jesus was born of a virgin?
That's a good one, man.
Yeah,
Mother Mary
I'm aware.
was,
I've done this for a
you
while.
could say
Here's a trick one
she
for
was a
you.
virgin.
How do you, here's a trick one. How do you prove that Jesus was born at all?
Because we have records of his existence.
No, we don't.
I mean, there's
We
10,000
do not have
manuscripts
records. We do not have records of his existence.
outside of the Bible.
No, we don't.
There are
Okay,
no
well,
contemporary
then you don't
accounts of
have
Jesus, or
records of
there are
anyone.
no contemporary accounts of Jesus or anything specific and unique to his life outside of the Bible.
That's entirely untrue, because
No, it's absolutely completely true. I'm not even a mythicist. I'm not even a mythicist, though. I'm not a mythicist, though John is. But I said there are no contemporary accounts of anything specific to Jesus' life outside of the Bible. Name one.
If you're saying that, then you're saying that there's no contemporary evidence for anyone existing.
No, that's not.
Beyond
That's not
the
true.
modern era.
That's first of all, that's not what I'm saying, and that's not true, because we have contemporary evidence of my existence. We also have contemporary existence of George Washington. We have contemporary evidence for many different people, including some people earlier. It's very difficult, I admit, to get contemporary evidence of, like, let's say, first century Palestinian people. I'm not a mythicist. I think it goes a step further than it probably should in making a claim that it may not completely be able to defend. But the problem is that Christians cannot demonstrate conclusively that Jesus even existed. We just have stories. And so you're taking, I'm willing to grant, John's not, but I'm willing to, I don't think John is, I'm willing to grant that Jesus is a real person that is referenced. How do you show that that person was born of a virgin?
Good question. Mother Mary was raised in a, I want to say, like an Israeli. Right. I'm not sure exactly what it was. It was a
You're
temple
not sure.
of some kind.
How do you know anything? How do you know anything at all about Mary?
Because we have recorded documentation of it.
Really? Where?
Yeah.
Where?
Well, the Orthodox Church has kept records of Mother Mary for, I think, as long as the church has been around. They've kept records from the
so
saints
first
and the
of all,
apostles.
you've been lied to by your church, and second of all, how long has the church been around?
About 2,000 years.
No.
But also, what do you know about Mary, and where does it come from?
What do I know about Mary, and where does it come from? I didn't really want to talk about Mary. You just said name a prophecy, and I said the virgin birth.
Okay, I'm sorry that you don't want to talk about the thing. I'm sorry that you don't. I'm sorry that you don't want to talk about the subject you called into. But if Jesus was born of a virgin, isn't that Virgin Mary?
Yeah.
And I asked you, how do you know she was a virgin? How do you know anything about her? And now all of a sudden you don't want to talk about her. I'm sorry, you don't get to come in and present your defense. And then when we ask you, I'm sorry, I don't know why you're fucking talking, but You don't get to come in and present your defense, and then when we ask you
There's no
questions
need to
about
be
it, say
so
you don't want to
rude
talk
about it.
about that. Do you really think for a second you're ever going to be able to talk over me while I'm exposing you?
I just did.
No, you didn't. And you know what? Now you're muted, Elijah. Elijah, let me teach you a few things. John's a mythicist. I'm not. We can have really cool arguments and discussions about this. We can get people in. John and my other mythicist friends, like David Fitzgerald and others, are well aware of what my objections are and why. But the problem is, Christians cannot demonstrate either conclusively or to an incredibly strong, reasonable conclusion that Jesus existed as an actual historical figure. Most people are willing to accept it, even most historians. It is the non-typical historical position to assert that he didn't exist. Most are willing to accept it because he was written about in the style, most of the time, of someone who existed. Kind of matter of fact, Jesus went and did this, Jesus went and did that. The problem is that the Jesus stories also include a lot of things that not only do we have no way to verify, these are things that can't be confirmed and couldn't have been confirmed at the time. I don't even know like I don't have a sister, but if my sister came up and told me that she'd never had sex and she was pregnant, I don't know any way I could actually confirm that that's true. I don't know how to confirm that anybody has never had sex. Virginity is a fictional construct. Virginity is not something that is detectable. There's no such thing as virginity, either in the sense of, sexual purity or even mental sexual purity. And so I'm sitting here, I think John might have froze. I'm sitting here going, hey, I have no way to verify that Jesus existed, but I'll accept it. I have no way of verifying that Mary existed, but I'll accept it. I have no way of verifying that Mary was Jesus's mother, but I'll accept it. But you're saying that the good evidence for God is that Jesus was born of a virgin, according to the prophecy. But the prophecy was not about a virgin, was not about Jesus, and you have no way to demonstrate that Jesus was born of a virgin. So, since you don't want to talk about Mary, what is your next failed attempt at demonstrating that it's reasonable to believe in a God? Because this one failed.
And if I can, I just want to stipulate that, especially for the conversation with Elijah here, I would be more than willing to accept that Jesus existed as a historical person. And I typically do that, especially when talking with theists. So
for the sake of argument, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what other evidence do you think you have for God, Elijah?
If an omnipotent, omnipresent, all-knowing, and all-powerful God were to reveal himself to the creation, which he loves, that is spoken of in the Old Testament, how would he go about doing that?
So, Elijah, I have a problem right off the bat here, but before we even get to your question, and it is in the tri-omni version of God that you're presenting here, because I feel like accepting a tri-omni God is going to put you in rather uncomfortable situations, especially morally speaking. Because, like, if you're going to accept a tri-omni God definition, then you wouldn't be able to tell me that stabbing babies in the face is bad.
I don't know where you got that.
Okay, let me ask you:
coming from?
is stabbing babies in the face bad?
Okay, I'm the theist here.
Right,
What
you
tells
are,
you
and
that
I'm asking you.
stabbing
Hold on,
babies in the face is good or bad?
I'm trying. You started off your entire. You started off your evidence there by talking about a tri-omni God.
I'm going to answer your question when you're done, by the way.
Okay. Oh, mine or his?
His.
Okay. so you started off with the triomni God, and I guess I was just trying to demonstrate that the whole triomni God thing is a bit illogical because, like you've got verses like 1 Samuel 15:3, Numbers 31:17-18, where God directly commands the slaughter of children, and specifically in 1 Samuel 15:3, you have him specifically calling out babies and infants and children in general, as well as women. So
I actually know the scripture that you're referencing.
yeah,
So,
and so
yeah,
God says stab babies in the face. So your stabbing babies in the face is bad comes with a caveat in that as long as God doesn't tell you to do it. If God tells you to do it, then stabbing babies is
Right.
good.
So
Right?
you're talking about the conquest of Israel in terms of an omnipotent, all-knowing, all-powerful, and completely good, justified God, correct?
No. We're talking about
Like
the
you're
command.
saying that
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're saying that in the Bible, God commands the utter destruction of the Amalekites, including all of the women, children, livestock, etc.
Yes.
Okay. How is that a good thing again?
Okay. You gotta sit down for this one. I don't know if you guys are sitting down.
I don't need a fucking preamble. I don't need a preamble. I'm going to answer your question about how God would reveal himself to you, but you've now allowed John to get into this area here. And so is it a good thing for God to command the Israelites to slaughter the children of the Amalekites? Yes or no?
Yes. And I'll tell you why.
I don't need you to tell me why. I don't need you to tell me why. I don't care why. You're wrong and disgusting. Are you ready for the answer to your question?
Why am I disgusting?
Because you just said that it was morally correct to command people to slaughter children.
Can I explain?
No. I'm not interested in that explanation right now. I want to get to your question.
Why are you not interested in the explanation? We're talking about...
Because I don't like to give airtime to pieces of shit who think it's a good thing to kill babies. And would you like the answer to your question?
60 million babies have died from abortion.
I knew you were going to say that because you're too stupid to have this fucking conversation. Here we go. You want to know how would this all-loving God show up and reveal himself? So my answer is, in the form of a question, why wouldn't God be able to show up right now to me and reveal himself to me directly, and to do that to every single person?
Am I on?
Yes. Answer my question.
Oh, okay. Why doesn't he?
Yes.
That was why doesn't God appear? He does.
No, no, he doesn't.
He did.
God has not revealed himself. God is not here revealing himself to me at all.
Well, when I got saved, God was revealed to me.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was. It's his son,
no,
Jesus
he wasn't.
Christ, who died on the cross for our sins.
Prove that God revealed himself to you. But that's not what I asked. I didn't ask why wouldn't God reveal himself to you. You said, how would a loving God reveal himself to the people he loves? And my answer is, why wouldn't he show up right here, right now, reveal himself to me and the entire audience?
He can show up through you.
I didn't ask what he can do. I said, why is he not doing it?
He already is through his people.
No, he's not.
Through the church.
Oh, no, Elijah, that's not how revelation occurs. I want God to show his fucking fat ass right here in front of me and explain why he commanded the Israelites to slaughter babies and why you are so morally bankrupt that you are willing to make excuses for it. Can God show up right here and demonstrate it to everybody right now, yes or no?
Yes, he could if he wanted to.
Then he fucking doesn't, which means you're a liar. because you said he is doing it right now. He's doing it through the church. He's doing it through dumb shits like Elijah who think it's okay, think that it's a morally excusable action for anyone, let alone a God, to command you to slaughter all the children. You have sacrificed your morality on the altar of a fictional idea. You are dumb as a fucking fence post and have bought into what the church says. You believe that Jesus was born of a virgin when you can't show he was born. You can't show that she was a virgin. You can't show that there was a prophecy of a virgin birth. You have bought into the whole story because the Bible tells me so. You are grossly irrational, and you have sacrificed any hope of being a decent human being or advocating for anything moral with the second you acknowledged that it's morally correct to slaughter children. And the fact that you did the predictable thing, which John knew you would do, I knew you would do, all of us knew you would do, and turn around and make this about abortion is absolutely embarrassing because A, neither of us mentioned it. You don't necessarily know what our position is, although I'm absolutely in favor and pro-choice. But also in the Bible, God doesn't count babies until they've been out of the womb for a month. The penalty for destroying a fetus is different than it is for destroying an actual human. And that's why the Jewish law on miscarriages and pregnancies is different. But if your God exists, not only did he instruct the Amalekites to kill everybody, or to kill the Israelites to kill all the Amalekites, including all the kids, but he also instructed the capturing of all young virgins in some of those things and making them, it doesn't actually say sex slaves, because if it said sex slaves, people would probably turn against the Bible there, but at least turning them over to the church, setting aside their desire. He had Jephthah offered to kill the first thing that came out of his house. God, under your model, your omni model, God absolutely knew that Jephthah's daughter was going to be the thing to come out and greet him when he got home. And God made the deal and allowed Jephthah to win the war, knowing that Jephthah would slaughter his fucking daughter. You're an embarrassment to humanity. You're an embarrassment to reason. You are an embarrassment to morality. You are not deserving of any more of my time. Goodbye, Elijah. All right.
They always go that route, don't they?
It's predictable. So here we go. Curtis Ronzerhiem is calling from Colombia, who wants to share his experience of what I think was God. Hey, Curtis, how you doing? Tell us what happened.
Hey, very good. And I just hopefully want to clarify the last caller there. Oh man,
no, please don't.
It depresses me to hear.
Please don't.
That justification.
Please don't.
No, it depresses me to hear someone justifying such an evil thing.
What fucking part of please don't was too difficult for you?
Okay, I'm trying to find common ground there. That
I don't need you to shut up. I muted you. I don't need you to find common ground. I don't need to relive the last fucking call. I don't need you to try to show that you're a better person than the last person. Show that you're a better person by having an actual conversation rather than commenting on the last piece of shit who was here. Because every time somebody does what you just tried to do, it ends up very bad. So let's hit a reset button. I didn't have you call in to comment on other fucking callers. So don't. Let's start over. Hey, we got Curtis calling in from Colombia. Ronzerhiem wants to share his experience of what he thinks was God. So, hey, Curtis, what was the experience and why would you believe it's God?
Yeah, so my experience was when I was about 17 years old. I felt, and it was my perception, that something beyond me was kind of taking me out of my current situation, which was kind of a negative situation for me. And it felt, or I perceived, that I was taken out of that to what you might describe as somewhat of an out-of-body experience. And so for me, that convinced me, because when I came back from that experience, I was not able to distinguish between other intuitions and other memories that I've had and that particular memory. It's it's part of my set of memories that I live with. And even if I question that experience, it would require me to question all of my other experiences. And so that I personally have to accept it. I can't like just assume that all of my experiences are fake. Otherwise, you know, I'd go crazy, or I don't think I've done anything to prove that I am crazy. I've been a law-abiding citizen. I've been trying to help people. I try to do the right things. I don't think I'm like a net negative or crazy effect on the world. So when I think about my own experiences, I kind of just have to accept that experience, even though I would never tell someone else that they have to accept it, if that makes sense. And so that's just my experience. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know who to tell it to. Like I'm willing to just keep it to myself, but I'm just wondering, like,
Curtis,
yeah, like what do I do with that?
Have you talked to a therapist? Because to me, this sounds like dissociation. I'm not an expert at all, but I don't know what reason somebody could have for thinking it's God and not just a psychological dissociation.
Yeah, it definitely could be a psychological dissociation. I think from a real world perspective, from any scientific perspective, that would be the explanation. And I wouldn't want other people to think that they have to accept my experience. And so I'm 100% willing to say that it was a psychological dissociation.
I mean, I have no way of saying what it was. I can just say what it sounds like to me, but I have no expertise. So I'm wondering, have you spoken, and do you have the opportunity to speak to an expert?
Yeah, I talked to like a really good psychologist. So this happened when I was 17, and then I talked to a psychologist when I was about 25, 26, when I was really struggling with the implications of that experience and the opposite of what I'm seeing in the world, which is it feels like I'm seeing the opposite of that God. Like I prayed that God would end wars. I remember I used to pray like as hard as I possibly could, 100% that God would end wars. I'd wake up the next day and it's still going on. So it's like I have the negative experience too, just as strongly as I have the positive experience. And so I talked to a psychiatrist, psychologist, and in the end, he seemed like he knew what he was doing. He was really good. Kind of was able to finish my sentences for me. And in the end, he kind of just said it was kind of more like a midlife crisis. Like at 25, he kind of just gave me this weird look. He's like, you're kind of having a midlife crisis and you're only 25 years old. Like, he's like, I usually see this in people maybe in their 40s. And he didn't really do anything after that. I went to another psychiatrist. He gave me some basically antidepressant medication, but I was like, I'm not depressed. So how
would you know?
Kind of have been, well, no, I'm not sad. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm like,
that's not what depression is. Maybe you should talk to trust the experts to diagnose you rather than thinking you can diagnose yourself. I mean, it's not my business, but I don't see where you have justification for. I don't see where you have justification for thinking it's God, but also I don't see where you have any justification for thinking you can diagnose yourself as to whether or not you're suffering from depression or anything else.
Okay, so just because I've had an experience with God, that is the only reason why I should trust somebody else's opinion versus my own experience. I guess I'm thinking what experience have you had with God? You haven't mentioned an experience with God. No, what I'm saying is it felt like, and I'm not sure how to even prove it logically. I wish I could, but it felt like I was seeing the reason behind like the situation that I was in, or the suffering that I was in at the time, to a point where I was like, I wouldn't have been able to see that perspective on my own. Like something else showed me that perspective, and I don't.
How do you know that you wouldn't be able to see that on your own?
Maybe it was. I mean, maybe it was somehow in my mind. I guess the language that language that I had available to me at the time.
How weird that you claimed you wouldn't have been able to see it on your own, and then when I asked you, how do you know you wouldn't have been able to see it on your own? All of a sudden, maybe you could have seen it on your own. I mean,
yeah, maybe the mind does crazy things like a dream.
I think you need some help, because all I did was ask you, how do you know what you just claimed? And you folded like a cheap lawn chair immediately in that, oh, maybe I don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the experience itself. Like, how do we know any experience or any memory is real?
Wow. You got it bad, man.
No, I'm asking. No, I'm asking for like on a just. I'm not saying that as like I'm gonna go
Well,
and like assume that.
So Curtis, I kind of feel like pivoting to like, well, how do we know any experience is real? Isn't really what we're asking here, because what we're to get at the heart of what we're asking here is how do you know that that experience is indicative of God? And then, tangentially to that, you would have to then discern between your experience with God and other people of other faiths' experience with God.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're just multiplying your problems when you make these claims.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how I know it's God, I guess it seems like I was given some sort of perspective that I wouldn't have been able to find on my own. That's the only thing I could say.
How do you know? How do you know you wouldn't be able to find that on your own though?
I guess it just the way I experienced, the way I perceived that information was that it was almost, I guess you could say it was like a dream. And that's probably the best in terms of explaining it publicly.
There are plenty of people that experience something in a dream and it sparks some kind of like novel idea. Like later, like that's totally reasonable, like natural experience there. So that's not indicative of God. Of a God. And you also didn't answer my question of how do you know that you wouldn't have been able to figure that out or figure whatever out?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess you got me. I guess I don't know for sure whether or not I could have figured that out. I guess in the short amount of time that it happened, it felt almost like something, higher, or I don't even know if it was. It's like I don't even know what it was or how to describe it.
Do you
it
notice
felt like something?
Curtis, do you notice all of the assumptions that you're piling onto this? Like you're assuming that it's something higher up. You're assuming that it's something outside yourself. You're assuming, like you just keep piling on assumptions here, and then you seem to come to a concrete conclusion that it was your God that did this. I don't see how you can start with these ad hoc assumptions and actually get to, God is the reason for this experience or this knowledge.
Yeah, I'm willing to say you're probably right, and I think it's something that I just have to just keep in myself. Then it sounds like it's not useful or it's not relevant in terms of trying to prove it. So it's almost like I just have to just like hold on to it and just use it as my perspective and not really talk about it.
No. I think that I feel like internalizing this is not the answer here. I mean, I feel like actually trying to discern like what you believe and why you believe it is probably the better answer instead of like internalizing this bad information. Because if you can't, if you're sitting there piling assumptions on top of assumptions and then coming to a concrete conclusion, like that's you wouldn't reason your way through anything else, right? You wouldn't believe anything else like that. So why are you resolved to, or why have you resorted to staking like your belief in God on this particular like position?
I think I had to do it because my family wanted me to believe in God, so I wanted to somehow like say that it was God so that I could have some kind of connection to them, probably. But I got to a point where I kind of got sick of talking about it, and I realized like I'm almost just like wasting my time even thinking about it, and it was probably better. It's just because I was trying to stay in the same lane that my family was in. I was having negative experiences that would be reason to not believe in God. So I was at a point where there's like no answer. So when there's no answer, I felt like it was just time to close the book and move on to something else. And then I guess when I do enjoy your guys' show, I watch it and I'm like, I know you guys are smarter than me. And like, I just was like thinking, hey, maybe I'll like find out something that I can.
Let's not focus on who's smarter than who in this particular respect. Well, I want to echo what Matt said is talk or getting in touch with the like a secular therapy project or the Freedom Recovering from Religion Foundation, because I mean it does seem like you're having issues with these particular experiences, and I think that the best way to reconcile those is with I guess maybe better
I would
psychological
say I was
help.
in my 20s I was in my 20s. I just realized I'm never going to get the answer. It's almost, in my experience, it was just better to close the book and move on and like focus on my work and stuff. But you know, when the show comes on, I'm interested in it. I always like to, I was just curious if like what I could learn from talking to you guys.
Well, I mean, I think the thing to take away from this call. Well, I mean, I think the thing to take away from this call is really reanalyzing, you know, why you think these experiences prove God, since you've admitted on all accounts here that none of it actually proves a God. You're just, for some reason, you know, still believing in that God. You're still compelled for whatever reason to believe in God, but it's obviously not because these experiences prove it. Right. So, I mean, I think that,
or something higher than me, whether it's a good God or a bad God.
Why does there have to be? I think the question is, why does there have to be something higher than you? Why can't it just be us? Like, why does there have to be something higher?
What does it mean to be higher?
Yeah.
I mean, those are good questions. I mean, yeah, why is it higher than anything else? Just different, I guess. It was like almost physically feeling like I was like swept, or like, you know, and it could be a good God or a bad God. I mean, I'm like, it just felt like something was like moving my perspective.
Why do you think
in a way
it
that
could be a God at all?
I think it was because that's what my family taught me. I mean, they taught me that that's what you call that kind of experience. But yeah.
Okay. Does the fact that your family taught you something mean that it's possible?
It's like, I don't know it's like, I don't know who to trust. Do I trust the language my family gave me?
Don't trust
the language that's coming
Don't
from?
trust anybody. Trust the evidence.
The evidence tells me I'm never going to know the answer. It's just move on and spend my time doing something
then you
else.
better learn to accept that. If that's in fact what the evidence, like for example, the evidence tells me I'm never going to truly understand advanced calculus, mainly because I'm not going to spend any time trying to understand it. I'm okay with that. The evidence tells me that I'm unlikely to ever know if the universe had a beginning. I'm unlikely to ever know. It doesn't seem likely in my lifetime that we're going to get an answer to that that's going to be conclusive. And so I don't give a fuck about it. It's sitting there worrying about things that I don't think there's a strong likelihood I'm ever going to know or understand. I got one life as far as I can tell. Why the fuck would I waste time in this life worrying about shit that I already accept I'm unlikely to ever understand?
That's a good point, man. Yeah, why keep going back to it if it's already inconclusive and it's been it's just something I got to the point where it's just inconclusive. Like, something happened, but a lot of things happen, doesn't really seem to affect the world around me. So
if tomorrow,
right. I mean,
if tomorrow something happens and it's like, hey, it looks like we're likely to find out whether or not the universe did have a beginning, then you know what I get to do? I get to change what conclusion the evidence compels me to accept. But everything, the rest is futility. To be sitting here frustrated because the evidence suggests, you know what else the evidence suggests? The evidence suggests I'm not going to get younger. The evidence suggests I'm not going to have an afterlife. The evidence suggests I'm never going to have kids outside of adoption. The evidence suggests I'm not going to live forever. The evidence suggests I'm not going to be a billionaire. And if I was a billionaire, it would be immoral and I would start giving that money away at a ridiculous pace. Definitely wouldn't be a trillionaire. As a matter of fact, the quicker we expunge any trillionaires from the planet, and I don't mean that in a violent sense, but whatever. There's all kinds of things that the evidence suggests. If I spent my time sitting around worried about all the things that that are likely never going to happen, I'm never going to play in the NBA. The Knicks may never win another championship while I'm alive. And I didn't care about this one. Sorry, Knicks fans. but I loved watching it because they lost when Trump was there, and yet their Muslim mayor pretty much helped them get to the championship. It was awesome watching people celebrate. That was a very different experience than what happened on the lawn at the White House. We cannot spend our waste the precious seconds that we have worrying about what's not going to happen to us or what we might not get, or, I'm never going to get those winning lottery numbers. And every second you spend sitting around worrying about that is a second you didn't spend doing the sort of things that might have made your life better.
Yeah. I'm 100% agreement. I got to a point where I was like, I'm an ant crawling around a calculus book at this point, and I just was like, I gotta focus on something else. And so I think that, thanks for kind of reminding me, like, not to wait around for the answer. If it's been, the evidence has suggested there's not going to be one. So yeah, no, I agree.
Cool. Well, I hope it was helpful.
The reminder. I mean, I love your guys' show. I like it's like watching a boxing match, and you guys are.
I wish it didn't look like that. But believe it or not, despite what people say, and perhaps in part because of what people say, those are the aspects of the show that I fucking hate. Like, hate.
That makes sense. And I mean, honestly, it would be tiring. It tires me out, because that's not my realm. And so I just had to kind of give up and like move on to something else. So.
Yep.
But it's like going back and watching something that, because I know how hard it is. I know it takes a lot of talent, a lot of like effort to think logically, like in logical steps. But it's just like I was just like, man, I can't logically make sense of this. And so, I don't know. I'm rambling now, but thanks for your guys' time.
Sure. John, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
That's good. I just hope you'll take some time to, consider what you believe, why you believe it.
Yeah, I guess I just believe that there's no answer. It's just like, the answer to the test is like unknown, or like whatever. Just move on to something else. That's kind of my mindset. So yeah.
Yep. If we don't know now, that doesn't mean we won't ever know. And if we won't ever know, it doesn't mean it wasn't worth pursuing. But we also have limited resources, limited time, because time is one of the resources. And trying to figure out how best to spend it is difficult. I don't want to pretend that it's easy. But when I see someone like you who's, really struggling with, I'm not sure how to figure out how to best spend my time.
I think the struggle is, do I try to make my family more okay with my willingness to ignore what they think is important? Because of the negative experiences I've had, I would just rather just ignore it, and not have to believe in God. But then it's like I'm searching for a way to make that original experience somehow important, where it's probably just not. It's just, if it's important, it should be easier to understand, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Curtis, before you go, I just want to say that it doesn't have to be transcendentally important. Like, it can be an important experience to you without it being important to some wizard, right? You just allow it to be important to you. It's perfectly fine that it's important to you. That experience, I've had many of experiences that are important to me, that I've learned from, that I've grown from, and everything. So allow it to be important to you. But I think the preconceived notion here that you need to move past is that it needs to be important to a deity.
To To what?
Like it sounds like you're saying that it has to be important to some kind of deity that exists, and it just doesn't. I'm just saying that it can be important to you without it needing to be important to something higher than yourself.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's almost like having like some kind of dream where you wake up, and even though I wasn't dreaming, and I know I was. There was no like REM sleep or going on, or like right before you fall asleep, right after you wake up. It was like right in the middle of my conscious like experience. It just like kind of like maybe dissociated a little bit. But then it was like when I came back from it, it was like almost like a helpful dissociation. It was like, oh, okay, I don't have
That's
to.
what our brains do. Our brains have incredible defense mechanisms. Anyway, but Shannon Q would be much better equipped to talk about these things, and so would someone with the psychotherapy project, but I'm not. And Curtis, I gotta appreciate you calling in, and I'm glad we got around to the call after the fact, and I wish you well, and hope you find ways to come to grips with the things you're letting distract you from enjoying life.
I think that's the word, distraction, man. I think you're right, because I have other things I want to get done. I want to accomplish, and I just think about it too much. I go for like years at a time, and like, I think you're right. It happens.
You might wonder. You might wonder if you're and now granted, this is dangerous of me. Please do not take this as psychoanalysis of you. But as somebody who did this, you might want to take a look and see if you're letting yourself, or even actively sabotaging yourself, getting hung up on these things because you're afraid to try to do the things you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. It's like almost like a comfort of going back to trying to almost like solve my family's religious problems, I guess, where I think it feels like a comfort zone maybe of trying to figure the problem out. Whereas if I just had more focus on like my career or something, and just, I mean, there's so many other things to do. I mean, there's so many, and I think it's just, but I guess every time you see something bad happen in the world, or every time you see something, it just kind of reminds you of like, hey, where's God? Like, why isn't that coming back? Like where did that go? Like how can that help in this situation? Like whatever that was, and it just doesn't help. It just doesn't come back. And so it's just, it's just crazy. Like, but anyway, sorry guys. I mean, thanks for chatting, and it's just, there's no answer sometimes. It's crazy.
Well, thanks, Curtis. We wish you all the best. Keep your head up.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Take care. Hey, we got a bunch of theist callers to get to, and then when we're done, we're going to read all the super chats. And tonight we're reading all the super chats over $5, which means we might be here for a little while, that's dangerous considering I have a wife that's recovering, a dog that's sick, I'm tired, and everything else. But just as a reminder, we're going to have there will be announcement placards and signs that go up, but the line doesn't just host the hang up. So if you despise me and think that I need a vacation or whatever your petty little thing is that shows that I don't live in your world and you don't understand mine, there are other shows here, including tomorrow. The Transatlantic Call-In Show is on at 2 p.m. Central. On the weekends, not only are there various Calling It Now, but there's the Sunday Show and the Sunday Show After Dark. On Mondays, it's Skeptalk. On Tuesdays is Chewed Gum. And then Wednesday, I'll be back with another episode of The Hang Up. And next Wednesday, I will be here with Mandisa Thomas. You guys just missed a conference, the Revival Reason, that was last weekend, a Black Non-Believers conference in Atlanta, Georgia. But there are other things coming up that you probably don't want to miss. On July 11th, Seth Andrews and No Illusions are going to be in Cincinnati, Ohio. On July 12th, there's the Ark Encounter Protest 10th anniversary. July 31st through August 2nd is NanoCon at Montgomery Bell State Park in Tennessee. I'll be there doing a magic show and probably some workshops and other stuff and hanging out and having fun with people. On August 21st through 23rd is BajaCon in Sarnia, Ontario. There's AHACon 26, which is September 19th online. October 23rd to 25th, there's nothing at all going on. Nothing for you to pay. Oh, wait, shit.
What?
That's the Rocket City Reason Conference put on by John and Casey in Huntsville, Alabama. You can go to rocketcityreason.com for more information about that. And I know that in late August, August 29th, Seth Andrews put out a video today. I'm not going to play it here. But 12 years ago, Seth and Arden and I got together as the Unholy Trinity and did a tour of the United States and Australia. On August 29th, we're getting the band back together to do a reunion, the second reunion that we've actually done. And all three of us will be there. It's in Fort Worth, Texas. I think you can go to, I think it's unholytrinity.com.
I think it's .net.
Maybe it's .net. Okay. Anyway, John's one of the sponsors of that, so you should know.
Yeah. And I was so excited when Seth asked us about sponsoring him. We were like, yeah, let's do it. And so that's pretty much how it happened.
Also, November 28th through December 6th is BNCCon, which is the Black Non-Believers Cruise event. You can go to bnseacon.com for more information about that. I should give out the addresses for all of these. Seth and Noah, you can go to sethandrews.com/Cincinnati. The Ark Encounter protest is arkresistance.com. NanoCon is at nanocon.rocks, ROCKS. BajaCon is at bajacon.com. I don't have the address for HACon. And rocketcityreason.com is the one for Rocket City Reason. There we go. All right. Let's get back to some calls. Oh, man. Okay. Jeremiah is a theist from Tennessee. Pruns are him. I'm confused about your topic, Jeremiah, because it says you want to talk about the simulation argument in regards to the notion, is your God real? But I don't have a God, and I don't care about simulation arguments. But go for it. What's up?
The basic question is, do you think it's possible at all for consciousness to exist in a non-biological substrate?
I have no idea.
So you think it's possible that our consciousness is some magical thing that we don't understand based on the way the mind operates?
That's not what I said either.
Well, yeah, but the inclination would be, yeah, sure, it seems, we don't understand consciousness. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be feasible.
Well, Jeremiah, I'm a little confused by what you stated there, because you said some magical process that's controlled by the mind, like how the mind operates. I feel like you're mixing up magical explanations with natural explanations with that. Can you maybe clarify into something coherent?
Yeah, I was asking why he didn't think it was possible for consciousness to
because I have not Jeremiah, I don't think it's possible because I have not been convinced it's possible.
Is there anything that could convince you it's possible? Could it be?
I have no idea.
What is consciousness?
I have no idea what would convince me that it's possible.
So what is consciousness, I guess, is the question then.
Why are you asking me these questions? I have no idea.
Well, so if we're
why
talking
you're
about
asking
God,
me.
that is. If we're talking
that
about
is what?
God, that's a work.
Jeremiah. Do you believe that an agent God exists? Yes or no?
Yes.
Is there anything about my current position on consciousness that is in any way relevant to your argument for the existence of God?
100%. Like, I mean,
no,
if
there's
it is
not. No,
impossible
there's
for
not.
conscious-
No, there's not.
I'm
No,
happy
there's
to
not,
explain.
Jeremiah. I can prove it to you if you'll shut up a second. If you came to your belief in God because Matt thinks X about consciousness, you're an irrational buffoon. There's nothing about what I think about consciousness that is relevant to your justification for God. If so, you don't understand reason or justification. I am not relevant to whether or not you have. I am not relevant to whether or not you have a reasonable argument for God.
So here's the thing is, if you think that consciousness cannot exist
No, sir.
outside of
No, sir.
biology,
No, sir. No, sir. There is nothing about what I think or do not think about consciousness that could possibly be bearing on your argument for the existence of God.
Well, if it's not possible for there to be a mind.
No, sir. I'm sorry you're stupid, but I'm going to fix this for you. Reasonable arguments for any proposition exist and are reasonable, independent of what any individual in the world thinks of them. What I think about consciousness, what I think it is, whether I think it's possible outside of a brain or not, is completely irrelevant to whether or not you have a reasonable, rational, evidence-based argument for the existence of God. This is rudimentary. This is the very foundation of how to make a logical argument. And the fact that you don't understand this and agree to it, even after I pointed out multiple times, disqualifies you from conversation on this subject. Shall we try again? Let me unmute you. Jeremiah, do you have a reasonable argument? I'm sorry, Jeremiah, do you have a reasonable argument for the existence of God?
Well, yeah, the first premise is that
is it in any way tied to what I think about consciousness?
No, it's tied to whether it is possible.
So no, look, Jeremiah, I guess I'm going to have to fucking mute you again because you don't know how to do this. Because you've now been an asshole and now you're forcing me to do the same. Okay? I answered your questions. I played your little game. I exposed your problem in your thinking. And now you're willing to admit that you have a reasonable argument for the existence of God that is not in any way conditioned on what I think about consciousness. And so I'm going to ask you one question, and how you answer this is going to determine whether this conversation continues. Buckle up. Don't say anything. I'm going to unmute you right now. You'll hear a beep, but that's it. The question is this. Why did you ask me and insist that my position on consciousness was relevant to your argument, only to then say it wasn't?
I'm only trying to figure out whether it is unscientific to believe that a mind can exist outside of biology.
So, Jeremiah, I'm welcome to mute again. That is not an answer to my question. And I'm not here to tell you whether it's scientific for this to happen. I'm not here to answer any of your fucking questions. By the way, Jeremiah has called, 9 times? And has been problematic repeatedly. So for those of you who think I'm jumping the gun on Jeremiah, no, he's a piece of shit. Can't argue his way out of a wet paper bag. And now is stuck in a wet sock, which is an absolutely terrible place to be. You're going to get trench foot, and I'm going to school you like the little girl you are. Oh, sorry, that's sexist. Little bitch you are. Oh, well, that might be awful too. Here, let me just school you. Do-do-do-do-do. Okay. Jeremiah, this is not the program in which you call in to find out, is X scientific? Neither John nor myself are the arbiters of what is, in fact, scientific. However, there are places where you can go to find out what scientific consensus is and to be educated on what science actually is and what is or isn't consistent with science. But if you called in to my show to ask whether or not X was scientific, there's no reason for you to do that, because My opinion on what is scientific is irrelevant to whether or not you've got a reasonable argument for the existence of God, just like my view on consciousness is irrelevant to whether or not you've got a reasonable argument for the existence of God. Whether or not X is scientific, by the way, is also irrelevant to whether or not you have a reasonable argument for the existence of God. You are a douchebag Philbro who sits around looking for new ways to have boring conversations and make yourself feel like you're smart or know or understand something, when in fact you are horribly confused on the basics of what arguments are, how they should go, what is sound epistemology, and whether or not something is reasonable. You are either a troll or a God believer desperate for credibility while demonstrating at every turn that you do not know or want or have any interest in earning any credibility. Whether or not a God exists is true, independent of whether anybody believes it. Whether or not there's a reasonable, evidence-based argument for a God existing is true, independent of what anybody thinks about it, what is or isn't scientific. If in fact you believe in a God that isn't scientific, you may still be reasonably justified, but you would need to make that case. If you think you have a God that is justified by science, then you fundamentally don't understand something about either science or God, because the God that most people are talking about is supernatural. And science, as I've said, I don't know, 3 or 4 times this episode and 5 million times over the course of the years, science is methodological naturalism in action. It cannot tell you whether anything is or isn't supernatural. It can't confirm the existence of or the interaction of supernatural things. I see no reason to think that consciousness can exist outside of some sort of mind, some sort of physical structure. When we die, everything that we seem to know and understand as our spirit or soul is a part of the consciousness that seems to vanish and is malleable as a physical part of our brain. We can alter your memories, your likes, your preferences, your attitude, your mood, everything. And there's no reason to think that any of it persists beyond a mind. But what happens with consciousness, what consciousness is irrelevant to whether or not you have a reasoned, evidence-based argument for God. John, do you want to give Jeremiah another try, or was that enough?
You know, we got enough in the queue there. I mean, I'm
Cool.
fine
Bye,
going on
Jeremiah.
if you want.
Let's try again.
Hello.
I'm really never interested in the simulation shit.
Yeah. Hey, David's calling
Hello.
from Delaware. David's a theist, pronouns are he, him, wants to argue for the morality of God. Hey, David, welcome to the show. You're on with John and Matt.
What's up? I'm just coming here to see your perspective, and I'd just like to start off with a good question, and if, you wouldn't mind, whether if you're supposed to ask me the question is depending. Should you ask me something first, or should I ask you something?
Well, normally this show is a place for people to come and argue on behalf of what they believe and why we should also believe it.
Okay. So if that's the case, I'd like to ask you a question. By what standard are you judging God's actions as immoral? Like, what's your moral grounding?
Well, I'm not judging God's standards because I'm not aware that there's a God at all. I'm judging the claims of characters attributed or asserted to be God. My standard for morality in the objective sense begins with the recognition that at a minimum, for anyone to have a moral view, there objectively must be the freedom to hold that view and the well-being to act on behalf of that. From there, you can derive what positions are more conducive towards that goal of the freedom and wellness to enact a moral view, and which ones aren't.
Okay, so following like just anything that's like epistle, can something be objectively wrong in a universe with no moral lawgiver in that case?
What do you mean by moral lawgiver? Because if you're talking about divine command,
moral law has to come from
hang on.
No.
Because if you're talking about divine command, that's not objective, that's subjective.
Okay, but God's morality would include that that's objective. he
No, it's
instills
not.
these, and if they're commands, you follow them. Correct? I mean,
No,
that's the Christian
no, that's
view.
no. I'm sorry if you think it's a Christian view, but that's not objective.
Yeah, but how could that not be objective? Can you explain a
Because
rebuttal to that?
is God a mind?
Well, the idea. Well, actually,
Is
no.
God a
Continue on with
mind?
that. Actually, I'd like to
Is
hear your
God a mind?
explanation for why
Is
God
God a
would be
mind? Is God a mind?
Well, that's severely.
Is God a mind?
That's a misnomer.
Is
Continue
God
to
a
expand
mind?
on that.
Is God a mind?
That's a misnomer. I would like to ask you to
Is
expand
God
on
a
that more
mind?
deeply.
It's literally a fucking yes or no question. Is God a mind?
You're looking for a yes and no
Is
answer.
Jesus
yes, because
Christ.
I'm
where it
literally
doesn't apply.
yes. I'm sorry. Here, let me mute you, David. You annoying little shit. Yes, I've asked you the same yes or no question more than half a dozen times because, in fact, I'm looking for a yes or no question because either God is a mind or God is not a mind. That's what the laws of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle tell us, that everything is either mind or not mind. That's a direct logical negation. So either God is mind or God is not mind. If God is mind, and that mind is for the source from which you are deriving some moral standard, there's no demonstration that that is the moral standard, but that makes it by definition subjective. I think you're aware of this, which is why instead of answering the very simple question that would expose the absurdity in your position, you danced around like a dancy-wancy thing. Instead, the other option is to say that God isn't mind, in which case God is just a de facto moral point. But that doesn't mean that God's morality is the correct one, or that any morality you can point to and say that's God is the correct one. Meanwhile, we're still an order of magnitude or more away from you demonstrating that you know the mind of God, that you know anything at all about what God says, what God wants, what God thinks on morality. If the Bible, for example, is a representation of God's view on morality, God is an immoral monster that doesn't care about either the liberty or well-being of humans in this reality. If God is the part of some other religion, then we can evaluate the moral systems there. But I gave you the objective foundation at the basis of what I view as morality. Your only objection to that seems to be that it is ultimately subjective, which is weird because what I actually described is objective, or that it's not the right one. And we could have had a discussion about whether or not it's the right one, or how do you tell which one is the right one? At a minimum, that objective foundation would be required as the objective foundation for any moral system, because you can't have a moral system if you do not have, at minimum, the freedom to hold a moral view and the well-being and empowerment to act upon that moral view. Everything else is just sophistry. And so you, having been, I don't know, trained like so many other Philbro apologists who don't understand what they're actually talking about, recognize that you'd better not answer the question about whether or not God's a mind, because you don't have an argument for your morality. You just have objections to any morality other than yours. Let's imagine for a moment that there is no objective moral foundation, that I didn't present an objective moral foundation, and that I'm aware of no objective moral foundation. The answer to your question is still the same. I'm judging the actions of the Bible character by my standard of morality, because I am morally superior to the rape-inducing, rape-encouraging, slavery-encouraging, sexist, misogynist, genocidal, infanticidal, patricidal prick in the Old Testament, and the one in the New Testament that extends punishment for finite crimes to infinite. I'm morally superior and I'm intellectually superior to the God of the Bible, that character entirely. If that's not the God you're talking about, cool, but I'll bet money that's the God you're talking about. Here we go.
And
Oh,
I
I'm
would
sorry.
say
I got to mute you so John can talk too.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say that I feel like that along with the whole stance dependent thing that you've got going for you there, David. I would say that there are obviously immoral things that both Matt and I could definitely get you to say is actually a good and moral thing to do, which makes you pretty disgusting. I'm just saying that as a hypothesis before we go forward with the whole moral argument thing, because if you're going to come at it with divine command theory in any way that you want to instantiate that, you're ultimately going to have to agree that the immoral things of the Old Testament are actually moral things just because God said to do them, and that is what makes you not like objective in any kind of sense, or at least maybe not that, maybe not objective, but not a good framework for making moral decisions.
So here's what needs to happen, David. I provided you the two cornerstones for objective moral foundation that I begin with. And my position is that they are objectively necessary in order for there to be any moral foundation. You need to demonstrate that they are not objective and not required for the foundation of a moral position. Otherwise, it's over. Try again.
I just wanted to say one thing here is here's my my 2 cents on that. Then God is a mind. If objective moral laws.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you because sorry, we've long since moved past your dishonest fuckery in avoiding answering the question about whether or not God is a mind. So you don't get to start off with God is a mind. You should have answered that question the 5 or 6 times I asked you when you tried to fucking avoid it. Now, let me be clear, as I was right before I unmuted you. I've given you the 2 objective criteria that I hold as a foundation, a necessary foundation for any moral system. In order to counter that, you must show that either these 2 are not, in fact, objective or not necessary as foundations to morality. Are you able to do that?
Well, the fact is, I mean, I asked you to expand on the answer multiple times.
I'm sorry, that was a yes or no question. I'm sorry, that was a yes or no question.
Well, the yes or no question is in the instance where you're not looking to.
Okay. I asked you a yes or no question. I asked about 5 or 6 times, and you refused to answer it until I schooled you like the little baby you are. And then you come in wanting to pretend like you were willing to give the answer all the time. Well, of course, God is a mind, blah, 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 blah. So here's the way this works. I presented my case. You need to present a rebuttal to my case. And the way to rebut that is to show that the 2-part foundation that I provided as an objective moral foundation is either not objective or not a necessary moral foundation. The question that I asked you was a yes or no question. And that question is, are you able to do that? I'm going to unmute you, and you're either going to say, yes, I can do that, or no, I can't, or you'll say something else. And in one of those scenarios, this call will end.
I feel like you're being kind of reductive, but I can.
I'm a man of my word. That was not yes or no. That was something else, and the call ended. Hey, John.
Hey. How's it going?
What's up with Phil Bros thinking they've got some fucking... Oh, if I just don't answer the question and dance around and say, I feel like you're being kind of reductive. I feel like you're kind of being kind of avoidy. I feel like you made me ask the same question a half a dozen times and pretended like there was something wrong with the question, only to answer it after you got schooled because I know the shit better than you do.
Mm-hmm.
God damn.
And you know, I feel like they shouldn't play this game this late into the show because we're more. I feel like we're probably got our fingers on the drop button like faster than normal.
all I want, all I would like is an honest fucking theist. It's really easy. You ask. By the way, I'd like people to take notes. How when we're asked a question, how I strive to make sure we answered it. Like even earlier, even when John and I weren't on the same page, we had a completely different line of attack, both of which were absolutely fine. This is not a dig at John. The guy asked a question. I was preparing an answer for it. John went another direction. I made sure we came back to it. When people ask us a question, especially early in a call, unless it's clear that they're trying to get an opinion from us that they think might be relevant to how they're going to frame their God argument, I answer it. And sometimes I answer it even then. Because the reality is, there's nothing about my current opinion that in any way impacts your argument for God. And if it does, then we're not engaged in you presenting an honest case for our God. You're trying to tailor your propaganda to who's here and what they know and what they think. That's not the way this works. And as long as I'm sitting here, it'll never fucking work. All right. Billy's an atheist from Texas. Pronouns are him who has a question for us. Thanks for your patience and waiting. Go for it.
Hi there, Matt. Good to talk with you. John, you as well. This is not so much a debate. It's more of a question on whether or not there is any utility to religion. And this more comes from a personal experience that I'm going through. Unfortunately, my grandmother has gone into hospice. My family is very religious. A lot of the conversation is around, when she passes away, she's going to go back and visit all of our family members in heaven and all that stuff. And I'm trying to figure out a way to navigate being honest to what my beliefs are, because I am atheist, versus what is reasonable and not trying to hurt my fellow family members who still believe in religion. So I'm trying to navigate that fine line, and I'm not sure, at what point do I draw the line in terms of going along with this idea of, she's going to go ahead and visit our family in heaven versus, I just don't frankly believe that.
Well, I mean, how I in particular would handle that is to not necessarily say that. Like, don't sit there. In my opinion, I wouldn't be like, nah, there's no heaven or anything. Like, I wouldn't be that blunt about it. But what I would probably do is I would probably try to emphasize to people, like, some things that we can know in reality, like the reality of the fact that, you hold on to the memory of your loved ones, and you can keep their memory alive, and, the impact that they had on your life, or the impact that they had on other people's lives. Like, I don't know. I guess it would be in my nature to ground people in like something that's real but still sentimental, as opposed to feeding into the religious notion of there being a heaven, or like, you'll see them in the afterlife or something like that. I would try to ground them in the real sentimental value of what that person meant to them, as well as how they can best incorporate that person's memory into their life going forward. Think positive things of that nature. So I think that there's definitely ways that you can navigate not feeding into the magical thought process while still remaining, emotionally connected and thoughtful to, the grieving process. Also, I'm so sorry to hear about that situation for you.
No, and I appreciate that. I think that part of it is just we've had a difficult few years of stuff. My aunt, who was my grandmother, who is currently in hospice, she passed away on Christmas Day. Not this last Christmas, but the Christmas before. And then her husband, my uncle, passed away in October, so not even a year afterwards. My health is not particularly great either. So it's just like one thing after another, and it feels like the more things that come down the line, the more people try to grasp onto a religious belief. And again, while I don't necessarily believe it, I want to be honest to what I believe while also not necessarily crushing the people who are going to be left behind.
Right. And I mean, I would say that you can definitely do that. You can be positive and be, cognizant of their grieving process while also not playing into that. You ground your sentiments, you ground your, assisting them in their grieving process and in real things that they can manage, like the memories that they hold of that person and all that. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily classify, which I'm not saying that you're doing this, but I wouldn't necessarily classify it as not as compromising your own beliefs to not just directly, say, oh, there's no heaven. I think that there are definitely ways that you can navigate around that, that where you're not compromising, yourself and what you believe and everything, while still assisting them or assisting others or not, I guess at least not being a detriment to other people's grieving process, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yep. That makes sense. That's kind of been the fine line that I've been trying to walk throughout this entire process, because it's difficult. I don't want to hurt any of my family members in any way, shape, or form, but there are also so many conversations that crop up when I'm talking with them about all of this that then devolves back to the religious beliefs and whatnot that I can't feel myself going in and agreeing with, because I just don't believe it. But at the same time, I don't want to be like, yeah, no, that's a bunch of bull crap. Sorry.
Right.
Deal with it.
I mean, I don't think that you have to necessarily agree with it or audibly disagree with it. I think that you can, just to, I guess maybe just do a little scenario here is like, if somebody's like, oh, she's gone to be with Jesus, it's like, you don't have to be like, yeah, she is, or anything like that. You can just be like, I'm grateful for, one thing or another that she did for me, or, I remember this about her and all this. Like, you can ground it in something real, or you don't even have to answer that person. You can just, you can change topics about it. You don't have to, if they start demanding that say, oh, she's in heaven, say it now. Like, I mean, I would just lay down a line, be like, look, I understand that this is your grieving process and that, there's nothing that I can say that's going to make you believe something different right now. But, this is a hard line for me. Don't cross this line. We're both here grieving her passing, and I'm not forcing you to believe the things that I do. I'm not forcing you to believe the things that you do, or you're not. Anyway, you get what I'm trying to say. I think that you can lay down, just a fine, a line right there, draw a line in the sand for what's acceptable. And if they can't learn to respect that while you're respecting respecting them, then, you can always just remove yourself from that situation. I know that might not be ideal for any one point in time, but I do feel like you've got to draw that line, of what's acceptable. And if they can't respect that, then that says more about them.
When I go to funerals, either pretty much everybody there who I would interact with knows me and what I think, in which case I don't feel the need to comment. And they already know I don't support or I don't agree with them. And if I'm at a funeral where I don't know the people there, I keep my mouth shut, because the funerals are for the people who stay behind and are grieving. And yeah, I could get up at funerals and talk about how I think it's bullshit and I think religions have poisoned all of our conversations about death and dying and have set up false expectations, but doesn't really do anybody, including me, any good. It's not a point in time where anybody's, amenable to reason, and let's have an argument and discussion about whether or not grandma's playing a harp with the angels or not. And so you don't have to say a thing. Yeah, I chuckled a little when John was like, if they're saying you need to say it now, yeah, okay. And people know better than to try that around me. But it's, yeah, there's utility in religious belief, and there's utility in recognizing that for people who believe it, there's extra utility and benefit to them, and that even if you don't share their belief, there's a time and a place to make that clear. And a funeral is the only time I would speak up at a funeral is if I saw a minister, not a family member, a minister using the death of someone who I knew was opposed to religious claims as an opportunity to proselytize. I feel like I would have an obligation to stand up for their beliefs and say, you're free to do that at church, pastor, but they did not share your beliefs. This is not your pulpit. This is for the family members who are to share their thoughts and reflections of this person, and every word coming out of your mouth is an abomination to what this person stood for, and I'll kindly ask you to shut the fuck up and sit down. That I would do at a funeral, and only under those circumstances. If another family member, another loved one got up and wanted to say what their thoughts were about heaven and religion, even at the funeral of someone who I knew would object, I would allow them to do that because they're an actual grieving party. Fuck the pastors. They're opportunistic little grubs.
So I think that's probably part of where I'm a little conflicted, because my grandmother has asked me to deliver her eulogy, which I'm more than happy to do. And she has always been very much a diehard Catholic. She was born in Ireland, came over to America, has been Catholic her entire life. But at the same time, she also was the very first family member when I deconstructed from Catholicism and said, hey, you know what? I'm not Christian anymore. She was the first person to say, you got to live your life. And so I'm like, so much in a difficult mindset to figure out how to deliver something like that and be mindful of the family members that are around, be mindful of what her beliefs were, and also at the same time honor what a strong person she was, to be able to say, look, you might not believe what I believe, but I still support you.
I know what I would say, and you are free to ignore this or use it however you like. I'm assuming your other family members, at least some of them, are clear that you're an atheist.
Yes, all of them are.
Yeah.
They're all aware of it.
I would say, Grandma asked me to deliver the eulogy. I loved her dearly. She was a devout Catholic, and there are people who might be going, why? Why would grandmother ask the godless heathen in our family to speak on behalf of her? And it's because she understood that the things that unite us are greater than the things that divide us. And the fact that we disagree on things is our actual freedom. From her perspective, I was living my life that God had granted me, and she was living her life that God had granted her. And while she's thinking that, she evidently wanted other people to recognize that this sort of sharing of space is valuable, was valuable to her, and that rather sitting around talking about who believes what and who doesn't believe what with regard to the supernatural, we should spend our time talking about how we treat each other, how we value the people in this life, how we're going to be remembered, how we love each other and care for each other while we're here. That's part of the reason why I love her. I will miss her, and I'm happy that she asked me to do this. And I know that she would want us all to, I put a lot of my thoughts about my grandmother in there, but that's how I would address it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I know you probably got other calls to go to, but that actually really helped. So I appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad it helped. I wish you the best. My arm is bleeding. I just scraped it. So I'm going to let Billy go. We're going to move on to another call. But call back and let me know how it goes, because I find it very difficult for people to object to that, because you didn't make it about you. You made it about her. And this is what she wanted.
Yeah,
thanks,
definitely.
Billy.
Thanks, Billy.
I need to go before I cry. I'm gonna go wash the blood off my arm that I just scraped. Michael's a theist calling from Florida. John, I'm assuming you're in Colin's studio.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna step away for a minute. All you.
Okay. All right, Michael, how you doing? Yep. So what you want to talk about there, buddy?
Look, before we get started, I do have something I'd like to say. And this covers both theology and other issues we've been facing as a people. Well, look, the existence of...
Sorry, Michael, are you there? Were you playing a recording back? What's going on? Oh, he dropped.
Ooh, what happened?
I don't know. He just dropped. So it makes it easy. Michael, his thing said how Christianity and American politics have become entangled. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he wanted.
It said the topic I'd like to focus on is how Christianity and American politics have become completely entangled, and how that's damaged both the church and your understanding of people's actual faith. So I was waiting on this call. I'm kind of sorry Michael dropped, but Michael, if you think my understanding of people's faith has been impacted negatively by what's currently going on in the United States, you're right. But I also walked down the aisle at the age of 5 and accepted Jesus into my heart and was an active part of the Southern Baptist Church all the way up until I was around 30 or so. And that impacted my thoughts about people and their faith and their beliefs, as have the stated doctrines of those churches and what those church administrations and governing bodies have done, and the criminal acts that they have taken, and the violations of human dignity and decency. Recently, the Southern Baptist Convention has decided to codify something they kind of penciled in a while ago, which is that they're no longer going to count churches with women pastors, because women need to sit down and shut the fuck up, according to the Southern Baptist Church. And you know what? I think they just did women a favor, because that is not a place that is remotely conducive to the well-being of a woman in the world, whether she's a believer in a God or not. And so getting women as far away from the Southern Baptist Church is great. And that's true irrespective of Trump or Hegseth or Keg's Breath or any of the faux Christian dipshits out there that are running Project 2025 and Christian nationalism. I think instead of sitting here wondering what has skewed our perception of people's faith, you should ask yourself, why do people have faith in the first place? Why do they believe something for which they don't have good evidence that is perhaps comforting, but isn't demonstrably true? And why they're advocating for these things in ways that are so easily divisive and so easy for people to misunderstand, and why it's so difficult for us to understand correctly. Why is God not coming in to give us a correct understanding of what he wants and what people should believe? Why do we need you to call in to try to do some rehabilitative PR for the religion that you think is the right one. I only care about whether or not it's true. Well, I guess I care whether or not it's true and whether or not it's good, because if it's true and awful, I still wouldn't want anything to do with it. All right. Here's somebody who's been on hold for 2 hours, a deist. My Santiago, thank you so much for waiting. The floor is yours.
Oh wow, Matt! Hey, thank you for picking up my call. I'm a longtime watcher, and yeah, both you and John, I love you both. And yeah, so I mean,
that might change.
Well, maybe. No, no. The reason I'm calling is no. I guess I really just have a question. I was a Catholic. I was a pretty devout Catholic, and then I started reading the Bible, and one of the reasons why it led me to deism rather than, I mean, maybe led me away from the Catholic faith was for me it was the problem of Judas, right? And it's odd to me that not a lot of people seem to think that it's a problem, but how do I want to say this? When I read the Gospel of Judas, it was many years ago when it was finally translated, it made sense to me that somebody else back then saw the same problem I did, which is that the Gospels, they don't make sense when it comes to Judas, if you understand what I mean, right? Like, because it seems like the actual sacrifice was not Jesus, it was Judas. Judas is the one who actually who went to, allegedly went to hell so that Jesus could, rise from the dead. But Jesus is an eternal being, and the only sacrifice that he made was hanging out here for 33 years or whatever. So,
well,
I don't know. I guess
I guess the way that I parse out all of that is that Judas is a which this is interpretive obviously, but Judas being representative of like the Jews in general, the Jews rejecting Christ, the Jews rejecting God, because they reject God repeatedly in the Old Testament, right? And so I think that he's just a sort of like an allegory or some other kind of literary device there that's meant to represent the Jews rejecting God's hand or God's love or something like that. We're just essentially rejecting God yet again and being punished yet again. And so I think that
sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, Christ being the Passover lamb or being represented as the scapegoat in that particular respect was, just in place of the is placed in the position of the Yom Kippur ritual, and it's just a way of absolving sin. And the reason why Jesus was sacrificed in that kind of way is that human blood magic is more powerful than animal blood magic, and so as a way of bookending the Gospels, I think that God sacrificing His own Son after so much firstborn son sacrifice that He did in the Old Testament, I think is just sort of like this poetic way that they wrapped up the story of Yahweh and everything. Not that it ends there. I'm just saying as far as getting to the end of the story with Jesus and whatnot. So, I mean, I guess my entire point here is that I think that this is all literary devices. And so like Judas being a sacrifice, Christ being a sacrifice. I mean, I think that all of these things have literary reasons and theological reasons, more importantly, for being in the story, as opposed to like trying to pin which one was the actual sacrifice.
And while I agree with you, it's the literary device still makes Judas the actual sacrifice, right? So if Jesus had to die on the cross and he had to be betrayed, then somebody had to betray him. And I guess that's one of the things that I found ugly about that whole situation is that God, being omnipotent, knew that Judas would betray Jesus.
So let me
Like
hold on. So Santiago, in I don't know how well you know the Old Testament, but in the Old Testament, do you know what common pattern is repeated over and over and over in the Old Testament?
Oh, humans getting screwed over? Yeah, sure, of course.
No. Well, not just humans getting screwed over. It's the Jews, right? God does something for the Jews. The Jews either fall away from God, they get lippy with God, or they reject God in some kind of way, right? And then and then God punishes them. And so, like, what you're seeing there with Judas is more about punishment, like punishing the Jews rather than like any kind of sacrifice. Like, he wasn't sacrificed. It works better as a literary device for how God has repeatedly or how the Jews have repeatedly rejected God and how God repeatedly punishes the Jews for it. So like that's what that makes far more sense to me than like saying that Judas was a sacrifice in any kind of way.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, like, if you're taking it literally, and by the way, I am an attorney, and I'm loving the argument. And no, what I'm saying is, like, if you take the argument literally, right, somebody had to be sacrificed, and it was Judas.
I don't think anybody had to be sacrificed. I mean, if we're taking it literally, well, why does anybody have to be sacrificed?
If you're taking the story as true. Right.
Well, no, yeah, but if we're taking the story as literally true, then we're talking about a God that literally is omnipotent and can do anything, and so he doesn't have to sacrifice Jesus.
No, I completely agree with you. Like that, I mean, that is another problem, isn't it? Right? Like God didn't have to do any of this.
Right. Like, I mean, I guess that's my point. I guess my entire point here, to kind of tie it back, is that I feel like it's a pointless effort to try to figure out who was the real sacrifice and everything like that when there's a perfectly fine literary explanation, for this already. But ultimately, I don't see how this is. Like, unless you're proposing this as like some kind of like New Testament journal article where you're trying to insert some kind of novel interpretation of the Gospels or the theological nature of Christianity, I guess I don't see how this can be profitable, because even if you were to do it, like if you were to submit something like that to like a New Testament journal, I don't know what you're accomplishing with it.
No, and you're right. No, it's just I don't know, an exercise in thought, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
because
am I
going to accomplish anything with it? No, absolutely not.
I guess your entire idea here isn't exactly unfounded. I mean, you've got like the Gospel of Judas. I believe that basically paints Judas as having to be the one to have to betray Jesus, because somebody has to betray Jesus. But I mean, that's a much later extra biblical text that was obviously not included canonically, probably because it paints Judas as a victim, not necessarily as a sacrifice, but as a victim. And so like it's not entirely unfounded like in the historical literature, but at the same time, I guess as far as like the topic of Christianity or the theology of Christianity, I guess I just don't I get the fun like thought process of it and everything, but I don't know. It doesn't really move the needle for me on anything, because I don't think that Judas was a sacrifice at all.
No, that's fair enough. And I actually think that the Gospel of Judas paints him as more like an accomplice, if anything.
Why should we give a fuck?
There we go. Matt straight to the point there.
Like, there's a lot of problems in the world, and there are countless believers in the actual books that are, canonical. Why the fuck do I care about fan fiction from the 2nd century and what people think about it?
Well, I mean, even without the fan fiction, problem still exists.
No, the problem doesn't exist.
I argue that it does, right? I mean, like I said, God is omnipotent, and Jesus had to be betrayed.
Did he?
And
Says who? Says what?
It says the scriptures.
Says which scriptures? And how do you know the scriptures are relevant? And why are you pointing to why are you pointing to non-canonical scriptures?
Well, I mean, the problem with canonicity is a different one. But all right.
Yeah.
Why am I pointing?
Hey,
why am I pointing?
I tell you what. If we're going to have an
scriptures?
argument about whether or not somebody in Game of Thrones had to die in order for Bran to become king, should we spend our time going to 4chan/fiction and reading what they had to say about it too? Objection, relevance.
Well, it is relevant. I mean,
It's not relevant. It's not relevant. This is not relevant to anything any Orthodox organization or church believes. This is fanfic about fanfic.
No.
Yes.
Even in the gospel.
This is what does God need with a starship? This is, oh, could Luke have done this? Oh, did this? No, there's no reason for anybody to give a shit until somebody demonstrates why we should care about the canonical story before we start going to the fucking postscript fan fiction.
Well, and that's what
I find
saying.
this mind-numbingly boring as fuck.
In the actual canonical story, it's always
I don't give a fuck. The world is on fire. Fascists are taking over and shutting everything down. Why the fuck do I care about the gospel of fucking Judas?
No. Let's get something straight, man. I am on those lists, okay? The list that the fascists run.
Let's get something straight, dipshit. I'm on those fucking lists as well. When I say I don't give a fuck about the gospel of Judas and that it's fucking fanfic and that it's not canonical, I'm fucking correct. This is not in the Bible. The overwhelming majority of believers don't know anything about it. You went and read it and found this interesting because you're engaged in the what if thing. What if about God? What about this? Why didn't it? Maybe it's interesting. So I had this thought. It's interesting that somebody in the 2nd century had this thought as well. No, it's fucking not. It's not interesting. It's interesting to you. The world is on fucking fire, and I'm fighting fascists and standing up against actual beliefs. Here's your question. Is any of this relevant to Project 2025? Yes or no?
Am I muted? There was a beep there. I'm sorry.
You're not muted now. Is any of this relevant to Project 2025?
Is any of this relevant to Project 2025? I guess you could say tangentially, yes. Yes, man.
Nope, goodbye. It's not relevant to Project 2025. It's not relevant in the fucking slightest. Stop wasting my motherfucking time. I sat through that. I was patient. I pointed out why should we care, and you decided that this is somehow as important as Orthodox doctrine. You decided somehow this wasn't just a waste of time because this is tangentially related to Project 2025. No, it's fucking not. There is nothing cited in Project 2025 that comes from the gospel of fucking Judas or anything at all. The reason you think, counselor, that it's relevant is because you think you're going to find something in some Gnostic text that's going to, wait, do I have a drum roll? No, I just have a rim shot. You think you're going to find something that's going to blow the lid off of all of Christianity in this unorthodox fucking doctor piece of shit that nobody believes, nobody gives a shit about. This is absolutely fanfic. What a waste of time. All right. We have super chats to get to.
I just learned not to beat around the burning bush.
Burning bush is the one that needs to go see the doctor. All right. I tried. All right, here we go. We got super chats, and I think I have a new system I'm going to try here for getting them up here. There we go. First one, $10 from Jimmy Snow. Happy Pride. Don't forget to be gay, homies. How could I possibly forget? Oh, I'm not looking at the right thing. I need to look at this. There we go.
Yeah. So
that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, Daniel the Manale says we got Matt and John. That's what I'm talking about. Looking forward to seeing you both at NanoCon and RCR this year. Can't wait to see you too there, Daniel.
I'm looking forward to fun, and don't come up to me about fucking deuterocanonical books or fucking Coptic text, because I don't give a fuck. I got enough shit to deal with the ones that people actually believe and know about barely. Venomous says, hey boys, tiny support from a trans girl. Really love the content lately, Matt. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very kind.
Weston Campbell 1268 says, I just tuned in to Jack's call. I remember him. I'd rather wear a suit made of baloney. Is it? Yeah, baloney in a creek full of alligators than try to find anything profound or enlightening in anything he says. Ugh, Matt.
Yeah, could be. $12 for JB Tight. Thanks, mods, and great host combo. Thanks.
Oh, Dante Verona says, can Dorothy really still believe in the wizard after seeing the man behind the curtain? Can she choose to believe that? She cannot. Dorothy became unconvinced. It's not a willful act. She learned too much. I like the psychoanalyzing of fictional characters.
Yeah, like Judas.
Yeah.
$10, the atheist mechanic. Jesus said he is coming for over 2,000 years now. The guy must have the bluest of balls. He's not even breathing heavy.
Joshua Everett says, is it National Sending the Line or Silliest Blokes Day in the UK? Apparently.
There was quite a bit there. Master Builder 3232. The Christian God created hell because he can't stop smelling the shit out of burnt offerings. He's a sniffy, nosy monster with a compulsive long nose. It does say that he likes the smell. So,
ooh, that smell. Anyways, Master Builder 3232 again says the Christian God left humanity alone for 2,000 years because he has to cleanse his nose boogers from all the flames of hell that went up his nostrils. Okay.
$10 from the atheist mechanic. Isn't it kind of funny when theists note what God wants is also something selfish they want? See Kenneth Copeland buying that jet that went all over the internet. By the way, there's also theists or Christians in particular who will happily pick out something that they say God wants, and then like, but that's not what I want. God wants me to do this, but that's against my nature. No, when they say something like that, it is always about something that should be a fundamentally understood, easily graspable act of moral contrition. And then they want to say that their nature is not to do that. God wants me to not kill all of you. That's not what I want. God wants me to do this, but I want something else because that's the reprobate nature that God has given me over to, and I need redemption from it. Yeah, keep your ass in church. The rest of us are fine.
Michaela Albertson says Lexa Pro Girlie's here.
Woot. I had a great call on Joe Vaughn's show today with a trans bigot. It was just so much fun. £5 for Mystic Mind Analysis. My message to people like Curtis: something can be important without it being real. I have a plethora of fantasy novels and games that influence me. True. Yeah. There's lots of things that are important to me that aren't real. I mean, stories. Music.
Yeah. Alishana Civilbro says, I was raised as an only child. It drove my sister nuts.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to say, no matter how tired I am, no matter how good my mood is and how bad it might end up becoming at different times, huge thank you to everybody who keeps showing up on Wednesdays. This is a bit of therapy, a bit of genuinely joy. And despite what you think you see, this is shockingly calming, and I sleep incredibly well at the end of the night. But I don't think I don't think I get it all right. I regret a number of different things I say. Like when I told this guy that the only thing I was going to put in my mouth was, or his mouth was my dick. I regret saying that during the show, because he doesn't deserve that. That's a reward. But of all the people here, I don't think there's a single person who has more consistently made me laugh more often than Aliashana Silverbow. And I absolutely feel like whenever we find ourselves in the same place in person, I owe you the biggest belly laugh and a drink. All the best to Arden for a speedy recovery. $20 in real, absolute, wonderful money from the finest people on the planet who we know as Canadians.
Godwin7 says, Matt GE, that's all. I just wanted to hear you read my super chat. Say hi and say thank you for what you do. P.S. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy.
True facts. Thanks, Godwin. Oh, this one's actually from a friend of mine. Hey, guys, just want to reach out and say thank you so much for all you do. Miss you guys and hope you've been well. Take care and hope to see you when you visit SoCal. Cheers, Michael. Michael O'Brien's a magician and a friend of mine. I maybe could benefit from some thoughts and advice from you, Michael, if you're still, you might not still be watching right now, as I get ready to do this show at NanoCon in July. As I pare down, I have way too many things, even for a full, like 90+ minute show. And there may be some things that I'm doing some stuff I've never done before in the show that have been like lifelong favorites of mine. And I might be a little too close to some of them and wrong about how they're likely to hit, but we'll see. I have lots of work to do before I actually dig in on the rest of that work, but it's great to see you. Thank you so much for your support. Is this me? $5 for the continued Rescue Abby, Jeremiah's wife fund.
Sorry, I missed that.
All right.
FKR S1H says God exists, the universe is it. You, me, everyone. I disagree.
Why call the universe God? I agree the universe exists. I don't understand, why would you call the universe God?
And if you're going to dilute the definition of God down to just nature or the natural world or anything, then God is a pointless word.
Yeah, it's like, oh, God is love. Well, love is a label that we use for a number of different complex emotions and situations, and it's not something that exists on its own. But, it feels significant because we all understand or think we understand or would like to understand some type of love. But I don't know why call it God. Oh, God is the universe. God is the universal conscious mind. I love hearing that one because now they've moved from something conceptual that they can't demonstrate to something, or haven't demonstrated, to something that apparently isn't true at all. Like, I have no awareness of a universal conscious shared mind. That to me is the wishful thinking that people use to excuse, oh, I was thinking about so and so and then the phone rang. It must be the universal conscious mind. Cool. Or it could have just been that you would have forgot you were thinking about him if they hadn't called, like every other time they didn't call. $10 from Greg Lisk. No being could ever demonstrate a power greater than the ability to manipulate memory. It could make you believe that you'd witnessed or experienced anything. Yeah.
Joshua Everett says, I need to put some more thought into Ian's conception of moral objectivity. I've heard it a few times now, but I'm still not convinced.
I get it. I did a video on it recently. Ian talked to me. I think it took Ian 5 minutes, one pass, and I think one clarifying question to get me to say, yeah, that makes sense. That is right. And I will adjust how I start talking about morality. And I have since then. And by the way, if it turns out later I've made a terrible mistake and I learn it, I will then have another lesson to teach. But I have no choice but to go with the best evidence supported argument out there. And I don't see how. So at a minimum, this is basically a respin of something I'd said before. I just didn't view it as an objective ground for morality. And that is, at a minimum, you must have the freedom to hold and enact a moral view for it to be of any value at all. Because if you're not free to do either of those things, there can be no moral view. And so that is the minimal, those two things are the minimal foundation required objectively to have a moral view. And then you can, from there, you can begin to derive things from it. And you can go back to the lecture that I did on the superiority to secular morality, where you could begin with any three presuppositions. Be like, health is generally preferable to sickness, and freedom is generally preferable to imprisonment, and life is generally preferable to death. But you could change those. You could say, let's begin with death is preferable to life and see where that leads us. And all of a sudden, you're done. And so if you begin with a lack of freedom of thought to hold a view and lack of well-being and freedom of action to enact a view, you can't even get started. And it doesn't matter whether your moral view is to kill all the humans or seek well-being and improvement for all. And what you'll find is there are positions like killing all humans is not consistent with the freedom to hold a view and enact it. And so the ones that conflict, it's there. We'll talk a lot more about it. There's a lot more coming. But I loved it to have that conversation with Ian. So thanks. $5 from Jay Salon YouTube. I know this isn't the best way to ask, but how is Dave from Dying Out Loud? Hearing his perspective of the story was amazing. Love the show. Hashtag Snow Melt. I haven't heard from Dave in a while. I know there are people looking to reach out to him. I will not speak on his behalf, but I don't know if John's heard anything that he can share.
No, I mean, the last time I saw Dave, it was last year at NanoCon, actually.
Yeah. Maybe I will see or hear from Dave at NanoCon. We'll see.
C Gray 08 says, love the show. Really great calls. All the best to Billy. I thought Billy was a really good call.
Jovan asked to send in a super. So here's mine. LOL. Well, thank you. Thank you, Atheist Mechanic, and thank you, Jovan. By the way, I had a blast today on Jovan's channel, and Jeff was on there. It was the first time we'd actually done any kind of show together. I think he's phenomenal. You should, anybody who likes me, who likes Jovan, you guys will like Jeff too. And you'll probably see Jeff on an episode of the Hang Up some point in the future.
SC for Jovan, we are Jimmy Snow, and what would Moral Marvin do?
Oh man, now I'm going to have to learn another meme from our group. $5 from Rex Betancourt. Why would God want sin to exist? He created two forbidden trees, and the serpent that tempted them makes no sense. There's a lot of stuff that makes no sense.
Yep. Billy Sipes says, thank you for your thoughts. They really helped, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking my call, and I will let you know how it goes. Oh, well, hey there, Billy. Thank you for that $50 super chat. Awesome.
Yep. And, that's very kind, Billy. You are well appreciated. Jason on YouTube, $5. More money because Jovan says so. Also went to my first Pride event the other day. Genuinely so fun. Happy Pride. Hashtag you're gay, homie. Yeah, happy Pride to everybody. Even if you don't celebrate it, because I feel like we should force it down your throat.
The Atheist Mechanic says, we love you, Matt and John. Can't wait to see y'all at NanoCon and RCR as well. I can't wait to see you there, man.
I am not necessarily sure yet. I know I'm doing NanoCon, and I'm also doing an event in Florida for their Pride. I have given a tentative commitment to Rocket City Reason, and I'm going to try my damnedest. The biggest problem is that it's very difficult for Arden and I to both go to something, given all the animals that we have to take care of. It's not like I can just hire somebody. It's not like oh, take care of the dog. We can board the dog. We can get somebody to look after the cat. When you have snakes and all the things that go along with that, it's a little more difficult. But I will be doing everything in my power to come down for that event. All right, 2 more super chats. And by the way, shout out to Jimmy, the badass motherfucker, for putting together an incredibly useful interface to change the way we do the work behind the scenes on the show and everything else. I already like it better than the old thing, and would shut the old thing down if I wasn't worried that something's going to break. Is this? This is me. Godfrey and Good, $20. Thank you very much. Is all prayer essentially and inevitably a test of God? Meaning that the person praying either expects God to work in their favor or some other reward of afterlife. It would be for perhaps intercessory prayer, but praise prayer is not a test of God. Prayers aren't always aren't requests for people to answer. And as a matter of fact, from my upbringing, I'm not going to put the Jesus hat back on right now, but metaphorically, if I put the Jesus hat back on, the prayers that you're instructed to pray are not prayers. It's not my will, but thy will. It's God's not a vending machine. And so they're not tests of God. Intercessory prayers, there are denominations that feel that they are blasphemous. And that's why so many different groups will do hey, God, I got a friend and they're struggling. If it be your will to help them, please do so. And in reality, I should do a video on this. If you were to boil that down logically to what it is, it's do whatever you're going to do, God. That's the bare minimum. And then it becomes, I recognize that you're going to do whatever you're going to do. I hope it's this. And do they think that by virtue of them playing this little game, are they going to change God's mind? Was God not going to help them until you said, no, I really hope you do help them. I hope it's within your will to do so, God. It is one of the most devastating lies that theists tell themselves. So thanks for the prompt, Godfrey. I might dig in a little on that for a video at some point.
All right, $5. Melatonin Ale. I actually met her this past weekend at the Revival of Reason. And I missed most of the show, but we'll catch the replay. Take my money. Also, much love to Arden and hoping for a speedy recovery.
Awesome. I hope you see the replay. When you do see the replay, hey, hope you're doing well. Come hang out.
Yeah.
We get to interact with her on occasion at some reptile events.
Yeah, she was talking about that.
And they are not far. They don't live far from our home, and so it's been nice. We try to keep, I love all you guys, but I don't want to hang out with all of you. And it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because there's something wrong with me. And I don't have the time to hang out with however many tens or hundreds or thousands of people are doing this at any time. But man, it's really nice when we get to go to conventions. It's really nice when we're at reptile expos. It's nice when we're out and about on the town and somebody, like we were in Dallas at a restaurant, myself and Aaron And I got up and left and went to use the restroom. And when I came back, everybody was talking about how this dude had come over to the table and recognized Arden and, was just thanking him, praising and everything else. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And they're like, yeah. And of course he knew who you were. So it's a shame that he missed you. And I was like, well, if he's watching, he'll see me at some point, and he came right back over to say hi. That doesn't happen all the time. But don't think it's unwelcome. I genuinely appreciate being appreciated. And more than that, yeah, I'll go off on a caller and call a spade, and I hate this and I find this annoying and everything else. But at the end of the day, we're building a community, and it's a community that's necessary, that we all need to share in. So here we go. I'm going to wrap this up for everybody in the new style. And that is, thanks everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to go to linemerch.com, patreon.com/calltheline. Like, subscribe, share the news, spread the word. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.